What does doing the Receipts podcast make you think about men?
Oh, God.
Was it a shock to you?
Massively. I remember thinking, is this going to carry on?
Starting her first 7 years growing up in Nigeria and hearing stories under the night sky. Also growing with a dad that was a pilot who may have set her bar sky high.
You are one of the hosts of the Receipts podcast.
I sure am.
One of the biggest podcasts in the UK.
And then I got very scared about putting this episode out. What if no one listens to it? And I remember it going out and I honestly went to sleep. 200 listens, 400 listens, 500 listens. And I think we ended the first day with like 2,000 listens and we were so happy. We were like, oh my God, this is brilliant. It didn't feel safe anymore.
What do you mean?
I think it just got bigger than what I thought it would.
Do you think all men cheat?
Given the opportunity, I do think they do.
Oh.
You guys are men, tell me, thoughts? You think all men cheat?
No.
No? Comment.
That's good.
Greetings, I'm Ashley Samuels Mackenzie,
And I'm Charles Parkinson,
and welcome to How I Became.
where we unveil the unscripted journeys of inspirational figures.
If you enjoy the show, could you do one thing? Subscribe. Wherever you are, just click the subscribe or follow button. That simple act can help us grow the podcast in a big way, and we need your support to do it. And if you really want to help play a part in our growth, rate us on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world. Thank you. This episode is brought to you by Uber, shaping the future for consumers as they go anywhere and get anything. Advertising on Uber connects brands with hundreds of millions of people using Uber around the world in the moments that move them most. To learn more about what we can do for your brand, visit uber.com/advertising.
Hi, I'm Tolani Shoneye, and this is how I became a writer and co-host of the Receipts podcast.
Starting her first 7 years growing up in Nigeria and hearing stories under the night sky. Also growing with a dad that was a pilot who may have set her bar sky high. Coming back to Forest Gate and experiencing the pangs of racism. A reflection of the world of a woman who has experiences that reflect challenges that many others are facing and living. Hard work, determination, and honouring her emotions. She started her first job at 14. Now how's that for real devotion? Some people have a few stories. Now we'll hear a few from this guest that she has grown by. Introducing the host of the Receipts podcast, Tolani Shoneye.
Yay! I love that.
Welcome.
That felt so special. Do you know what? Because normally I don't like poetry. That's really like.
I'm the same actually.
Yeah, like it's just I don't know what it. No, that's not true. There was a weird time at university when poetry and spoken word was all the rage, and the topic just used to really annoy me. And so I was just like, I don't like this. Yeah.
But then Ashley came along, and I was like, hold on a minute.
It's
Poems
different.
are actually very good.
They're a good time. Yeah,
Especially
love
from
that.
Ash.
I'm
Thank
glad
you.
I've changed your perception.
Thank you so much.
And I will say that poetry that doesn't rhyme, I don't get on with. It's not really poetry then, is it? It's more like a phrase.
It's just saying stuff.
It's just
It's just saying words.
You're just talking, mate.
Basically, you're just having a chat, really. In a rhythmic motion, maybe. But yeah, it's just a chat.
Speaking of chats,
Yes.
you are one of the hosts of
Yeah,
the Receipts podcast.
I sure am.
One of the biggest podcasts in the UK.
Yes, amen. Do you know, it's really weird that all the chats will be like, oh, I'm shy about it. Like, but yeah, it is.
Yeah, you built that.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah, I
7
do.
years.
7 years. We're 8
7
years this
years.
year. Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a very long time.
How would you describe, for anybody who doesn't know,
Yes.
Receipts podcast, how would you describe it in a sentence paragraph?
Do you know what our tagline were? Like girls willing to talk about any and everything. That was like the tagline. And I also, when I tried to like make people picture it, I'm like, imagine a girl's toilet in a club. And like girls just come in and they just
very
having a
good.
chat and like someone saying this, someone saying that, or a girls group chat. So like the whole thing of it is very centered around women. It's like, obviously anybody can listen, but the conversations are very centered about the experiences of being a woman because that's what we know. That's how we navigate life. So yeah, the experiences are very like women led, women heavy. But yeah, I'll say like a girl's toilet in a club or a girls group chat.
It's very accurate. I listened
Yeah.
I was laughing.
I'm glad you were.
I was laughing out loud on my own, which is always a good sign.
Always.
I don't laugh that much on my own.
Okay, good.
If someone makes me laugh, I'm like, this is funny.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Yeah, we're really like, I think just being black women, I think it's really interesting to talk somewhere outside of a male gaze and outside of a white gaze. A male gaze are like being like a politically correct, respectable, well, we're respectable, the gaze. So I think it's really important to us to be like, there is an aspect for me, especially to be like, to have fun. I think that's such a big thing.
Yes, yeah. It sounds like fun to record.
We have a really good time doing
and
it.
I learned about women through listening to you guys.
That's good
I'm
to
like,
know.
okay, the woman experience.
Yeah. I remember years ago when we first started, this guy, a couple of guys will come up to us and will be like, I listen so I can get behind the enemy lines. I'm like, okay. Or one other one be like, hey, was like, oh, I love your pod and everything. Yeah, but like, stop giving women confidence. I was like, okay, so.
Wow.
You can't say your thoughts out loud. Not every thought should be out loud. Yeah.
There's some issues going on there too.
Clearly.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. You're described as the millennial agony aunts and the internet's big sisters, which is kind of good. What is the concept of the receipts?
So it's like, so we do 2 episodes weekly, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, and the Monday ones are what we call your receipts. So they are basically, we get our listeners to send in their dilemmas, things that they're going through, and we like agony aunt it. Like we like help them with their issues. Audrey Indome, the co-host, and we've always loved teen magazines. Like we were the kind of the girls who would read Sugar and Miss and Bliss.
I think my sister read that.
Yeah, which was such a big part of our lives. And a big part of it was Agony Aunts, that you go in, that there's a bit page where people send in their issues and this that magazine Agony Aunt will help sort it out. So that was a huge influence for us to be like, okay, great, now we can do this thing in a podcast and like a weekly like advice column, I guess. I like to say advice is good sometimes. Sometimes
it's always strong. That's always, what it got to be.
Yeah,
always. We always really mean it. And it's even like, here's what I would do. Here's what you should do. Like we're very aware that like, you know, sometimes morals waver. So that's the Monday episodes, and the Wednesdays episodes are just a big chat. Like they were just like, we chat about things that's going on in the world, we chat about things that's going on in our world, on the outside world, pop culture. It's just us like catching up and having a chat basically.
And some big guests. We've got a few guests.
We've had guests, yeah.
Got Alicia Dixon.
Yes.
Julia Danuga.
Yes.
Sabrina Elba. And Jordan Stevens from Music Talks.
Yes, we have. Like we've been really, really lucky with people wanting to come on. And when we first started, oh my God, we couldn't get guests on. Like we would be like in DMs, like begging, like sending emails, and we just could not get a guest on. So now
like
that
to famous people you're trying to get on.
Yeah, not even literally just like anyone with a following, anyone like we just literally just always like, hey, we'll do this thing. We'll like had an email format, we'll change the names and blah 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 blah. We just couldn't get anyone on. To now being a stage where like PRs get in contact with us, they'll be like, hey, this person's in town, and we're like, that's insane. Or before we would have just asked like our random friends to come on as guests and things like that. So it's amazing when you list the names. And also I've got to like live out a dream of people who I've been a fan of, like Alicia Dixon, for example, for years, and been like, oh my God, I get to like sit with her. We had Regina King on, we had Winston Duke on. So people that I'm like in awe of, like just come on our like, I don't want to say little podcast, this is not a little podcast, but come in our little space and just have a chat with us. Yeah.
And you're here today because we met at a Spotify event. We're both speaking at, and here you are today.
Here we are. Yes.
Come about, right?
I feel so. Do you know what? It's so interesting being here because I'm like, the setup of it feels so like legit, and like I'm just like, oh my God.
It's a lot behind the scenes. People don't necessarily know. Yeah. Okay. And just lastly, I think you've mentioned, I want to give people an example of what these scenarios people send in are. The one I listened to, can you explain?
Go on.
They're amazing. Explain the situation with the girlfriend. So she sent a message in, and her boyfriend sent her to a hotel for 3 days.
Yes.
What?
Can you just, explain.
Right. What would you guys do? I'll set the scene. So basically, there's a girl, lives with her partner. Like, she's like, oh, it was all fine, but then it starts going a bit, he got sick. And after getting sick, he got better, but started being a bit funny, a bit more distant. She wasn't sure what's going on. So he said to her, hey, I just need some time. Go to a hotel for 3 days, and just asked her to go stay there so you could have some time. Now, Audrey's antennas are up immediately. She's like, that's weird. And I was like, oh, that's lovely. At least I paid for the hotel. Turns out.
Bright side and all that, yeah.
So she had left some kind of recording device at the house whilst she was gone. And it turns out that he was using the 3 days to plan to cheat on her and like meet a girl that he'd always wanted to be with.
She heard a phone call with his mate, right? He's telling her he's going on dating apps.
Scandalous stuff.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, and you know what? That is not even the most scandalous. Like that feels quite tame compared to like what we get in. So she was kind of like, so she brings it up to him, and of course he's like reversed her and been like, well, why were you recording me?
Yeah, then he makes her feel like she's
the bad person.
In the wrong.
Yeah.
Twisted it up, yeah.
So now it's like her argument doesn't land anymore because hey, you've invaded my privacy, and then he kicked her out the house.
What?
Yeah. The cheek.
Some people are cold, man. They got no morals.
So like her dilemma was, am I the bad person? It's like, okay, you were wrong, but...
Well, you would have been wrong if there was nothing there.
Exactly.
But the fact is you did it and you uncovered the plot, the scheme. So you're not in the wrong, actually, because what you did was on suspicions that then became truth.
And also there's a bigger wrong now, right? That was good.
That was good, yeah.
And it's a bigger run. Do you know, like if the police catch you doing something quite small and then you have a bigger crime, they'll probably leave the small crime and be like, let's face this is crime. Like, you know, there's a bigger wrong. So that's just one of the examples of things that we get. And you know what? I'm really happy that we've actually created a safe space so people can share that with us sort of thing. Like, I think there is, we laugh a lot, we joke a lot, but there's a lot of care we take for these people. Like, we genuinely care about our listeners. And we appreciate that they see us as someone that they can send things like that to.
Yeah,
it comes across that way, and you have like a community. People can, like,
absolutely.
Do the hashtag, and then other people share advice and things like that. All right, we've got some quick fire questions for you.
Let's go.
Top 3 favorite podcasts right now.
Oh, what was I listening to on the way here? This one called Betrayal.
Oh.
Of all time, I always have to say it, Dying for Sex, which is brilliant. And what was the last one I listened to? Right Now, Girlfriends.
What are all 3 of them about?
So Betrayal is, I'm on season 2, and it's just like women finding that their partners have done like heinous crimes behind their back, and then they're not realising it.
Okay,
yeah.
Like
true story.
No, but like crimes.
True stories.
True stories. Yeah. So it's them like. So it's the perspective of the wives telling the stories about how they found this out, what then happened. And a lot of the time, it's the wives that reported the partner to like law enforcement.
Right.
So there's that. Dying for Sex is brilliant. It's about this woman who is diagnosed with cancer. She wasn't married, is aware that now like her life, she's going to die basically. She's very aware of that. And she's been unhappy in her marriage for a while. Again, a true story. Leaves her partner and just goes on this like, just starts having sex. Just kind of like lives all of her sexual fantasies, meets people, like literally just kind of like free for all, in the lack of a better way to put it. And it's her and her best friend documenting the story, and it's really sad because you get to end and she does die as well. So then you get an episode where her best friend tells you as the audience that she's not here anymore. It is.
Is this true?
It is true. Yeah. It's brilliant, and it's.
Wait, so she was doing the podcast, recording it.
Yeah. Whilst getting treatment,
passed away.
There were certain episodes where you could hear her. You could hear her losing life in her. Like it's about sex, but it really isn't. Yeah. It's hugely about freedom and her just kind of like taking back the last couple of months that she had of her life. I think it's brilliant. And Girlfriends is about, the first season is about, I think like 5 older Jewish women who all find out at the time that they're all dating the same man.
Oh.
So they kind of all get together and become friends. In their becoming friends, they're talking, they found out that this man had killed his ex-wife.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's not the news you want to hear.
No, exactly. So they kind of, thanks to them, he got arrested for it and got charged for it because initially they just thought the wife was missing. Yeah. Right. So it's really, really interesting. As you can tell, I really enjoy true crime.
There's a theme here. I feel like we're going to might do some balancing out with men during this podcast.
I know, right? It feels like I hate them all. It's not that. I just really enjoy stories told by women.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah. I just think women are great storytellers. And I think there's been years where they have not been allowed to tell varied stories. So now that they can, I'm always going to listen to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's always been the same set stories that we've been allowed to tell.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How long would these stories have been out there? Not
exactly, and no one spoke about it or they couldn't speak about it. So I'm like fascinated when they're now given a space to just talk really openly about stuff.
Yeah, all right. Next one.
Who are your top 3 music artists that you think people should go out and listen to?
Oh, this is going to be quick. I don't want to say the obvious. I don't want to be like Beyonce. Oh, duh. Who am I listening to? I'm trying to think of the last couple of songs that I've listened to. So I love Lucky Day, R&B artist. I've been a fan of his for a very long time, Lucky Day. So there's that. Who else? Think. Oh my God, I'm trying to think of things I've like downloaded. Thames, of course, but of course, who doesn't know Thames? But I'm just thinking of the last couple of songs.
Some people, I mean, in certain groups, they won't. I've been telling people about Thames, and they go onto her and they're like, "She's amazing."
Oh, she's amazing.
Charles was like a proper Afrobeats ambassador.
Oh, okay. This is good.
He showed me some people.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
We went to South by Southwest,
and
there was a night on. I was like, Ash, we need to go to this, and it was Black Sharif,
nice.
Uncle Waffles, and Feels. That finesse, it was like it encompassed our time in Texas. Whenever I listen to that tune, I'm like, what?
I love Afrobeats. It's what I listened to growing up. It's always been a part of my life. Because I said Lucky Day, Thames, and one more. Right, this is like not a niche audience at all, but I have loved her my whole life. And I think it's so random. It's like the artist of my lifetime, which is Celine Dion.
Yeah, man.
She's got a documentary coming out soon. I think she is insanely talented. Again, I'm not telling anybody anything new here. But like, I remember being, honestly, I think in my early teenagers and listening to Think Twice, which is such a mature song. And I'll be crying. I was like, I don't even know what these feelings are. Like, I've never tried to convince someone to stay with me before, but yeah, I could just feel all of her feelings.
How does it go? Think Twice.
Don't say what you're about to say. No. Look back before you leave my life.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Sure
I've never heard it. I need to get some more Celine.
When you hear it,
you know it. Yeah. And I just think she's so talented, and it feels so uncool to say. I remember being in Vegas on a hen do, and she was playing at the time just years ago, and I really wanted to go see her, and none of the other girls wanted to do it. So of course it didn't happen. Until today, I'm like, I will never forgive you girls for me not being able to see her, because now that she's unwell, I'm never going to be able to see her again. So like, I don't know if she can still perform.
She's unwell.
Yeah, she's got interesting like disease, which means that she's going like static, like her body's not able to move it like literally. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's nicknamed frozen body disease or something like that, where your body just freezes on you and it just becomes rigid and it just freezes.
Wow.
Which is, I can only imagine how dreadful that is for a performer. Yeah.
Wow.
So I think her story is fascinating. And yeah, I just find her really fascinating.
What's the last gig you went to?
Who did I go to? Oh God. A music gig? I went to a sold out O2 show with the podcast Shits and Gigs.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they sold out the big O2, which was amazing to see. I'm like, podcasters are the new superstars, are the new rappers.
Totally.
They're the new musicians. It was insane to see that room.
Do you know those guys? Do you ever meet?
Yes, I do. Yeah. They've been on a podcast as well. I think what they've done is insane to me. Like, I was in that room, I started crying, and it was like, because I was just in awe of people's like their capacity to have done this. I'm like, this is insane. Like, amazing. I have a big thing with people that get things done, like just like movers and shakers. Like, just shake up a room and take up space and do things I've never done before. It's like one of my favorite things about humans.
Nice.
So that was like, was not a music gig though. I can't remember the last music gig I went to.
That's
I go
it.
to gigs quite often.
Podcast gig is the new music gig.
Yeah, exactly. The new superstars.
Last 3 tracks you listened to.
Your phone's not here. Doesn't matter.
Okay, last 3. Stormzy, Bad Blood. I listen to that song on repeat quite regularly. Lucky Day, Deserve. And what was the one that was playing when I walked in here? I think it might have been Thames, Love Me Jojo. Yeah, I think it was
that's
that,
her new
which
track?
that's her new track, which I listen to way too often.
Do you know what? I don't know what Jojo means.
Softly.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Jojo is to do something calmly, to do it softly. So like, love me softly. Love me softly.
Because when I asked Skepta a question at South by Southwest about like how people should, if someone's got a passion, how should they go about it?
Yeah.
He said, do it gingerly.
Gingerly, softly, like progressively,
dropping now.
Yeah.
It's all making sense.
Yeah. It's like because "Love Me Jojo" was an old school, a song that was out years ago, and she like reimagined it, I guess. Yeah. So I think there is a part of that nostalgia that makes a lot of Nigerians really like it because you know the original.
I see.
Yeah.
No, and I think this is such a beautiful thing that's happened with the acceptance and the support of like African music.
Yeah.
Is that now more words come into like the fray, and people can use different words that have different meanings.
I love it so much because every so often in a podcast will throw Yoruba in it. And it's only because I think certain things sound better in Yoruba or certain sayings. So I used to always say Agbaya. Agbaya means like an older person that's acting childish.
Is it Agbaye? Is that
YA?
YA.
Yeah,
Yes,
so like an Agbaya. And sometimes I'll hear like some of our white listeners like, yeah, he's been in Agbaya. And I'm like, that's hilarious.
Wow.
This word. And also there's a phrase saying I can't come and die, which is kind of like, you know what, I cannot stress myself out. And someone's tattooed that on their body.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is insane to me to be like, just words that were from my home and things like that people are now like saying, which I think is really cool. I remember going to a Burna Boy concert and the whole stadium at a point was singing one of his songs and he speaks Yoruba a lot in that song. And I was like, this is insane that all of these people are singing Yoruba. I didn't think I ever thought that was a thing that I could ever see.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying like African music has never been more global or
I think so.
popular
So at
globally?
the moment, I think I'd hard agree with that. Like it's like you go into a store and they're playing it. Like it's like background music now. It's on the radio. It's what's cool.
Yeah.
Which is like not to sound like a little black UK stereotype kid, but a lot of African kids growing up, we kind of like were quite shy about saying we were African because it came with like insults. So to now see it be like, oh no, it's this all the range cool kid thing is yeah.
Skepta
like,
said the same thing.
Yeah, like you just did. It's or like because I could never because I came from Nigeria, so there was no denying it for me. Like my accent showed it, like my name showed it. So I couldn't even try to be like, oh no, I'm like Caribbean or half Jamaican. I wasn't. Like my name, my first and last name were very, very much Yoruba names. But a lot of African kids did that growing up. A lot.
And what is Yoruba for anyone who doesn't know?
Yoruba is a language. Oh no, yeah, it's a language in Nigeria. It's the big ones I know, Yoruba, Igbo, and also it's like a tribe, like a better word. Yeah, tribe, a Nigerian tribe.
Cool.
Yeah,
got you.
Took me a while. Nigerian tribe.
Okay, well, let's get into the story of how you became one of the hosts of the Receipts podcast.
Yes.
So we've heard a bit about your upbringing there. We're going to go back into the beginning.
Okay.
How you became writer and podcaster.
Yes.
Ashley, take us away. Not with a poem, but with a question this time.
So,
yes,
you had an interesting first 7 years where you were born in the UK, but then grew up in Nigeria for 7 years. Who did you live with at this time? What was life like for you?
Yeah, sure. So I very much obviously do not remember my first year in the UK. Like I know it from stories. I always say I actually don't know what my first memory is really. I just don't know if it's what I've been told or what I remember. But I was born in the UK, East London, Newham General Hospital, and then was here with my mum, just me and my mum, and she didn't have a house. I remember she said she used to live in a hotel. And so I lived in this hotel, and she always says the story that I was like a really crying baby. Like I'm still a big crier now. And she was like, I just cried all the time.
Must be popular with the residents of the hotel.
yeah, exactly. Like never wanting her to go to work. Anytime she left my side, she would like leave me with a childminder, and I would cry. Like childminders literally kind of like refused me. They were like, it's actually enough. And one day she'd gone to pick me up from my childminders, and my hands were on the heaters, and I was crying because it was burning my hands, but I wouldn't let go of it, and I was a kid. Wow. And I think then she was just like, I can't do it. Like she couldn't leave me with childminders. She didn't know what to do anymore, so she took me back to Nigeria. It's really funny that I say back because I'd never been, but every time I talk about that story, I always say I went back. Yeah, but at this time I'd never been. But anyway, it's really interesting. So I went to Nigeria, and in Nigeria I lived with my dad and my sister. And there's actually a picture of me and my sister from the first day we actually met. Wow. Like in Nigeria, the first day. My older sister, yeah, Dabby.
How many years older is she?
She is 2.5 years older than me. Okay. So it was the first time we'd met, and there's a picture of us like sat on the bed in Nigeria, like meeting for the first time. So then I lived in Nigeria. My mum came back to England, and I lived in Nigeria with my dad and my sister. And
Lagos?
Yes, Lagos, Nigeria. I always remember my grandma lived in Apapa. We lived in Mafoluku. don't know if that means anything to anybody. But yeah, so lived there for 7 years.
This is the area of Lagos.
This is the area of Lagos that we lived in. Yeah, and my dad was a pilot, so he was like not there all the time. Obviously, he would go to work and things like that. So we had one of my aunties, one of my mum's sisters, and then like a nanny like look after us quite for a lot of it. And I went to primary school there. Went to primary school called Ewinla, which means big leaf. Yeah, I remember school weirdly quite a lot, because like in Nigeria, in school at the time, that you were allowed to get hit. Like teachers could hit you if you misbehaved and stuff. Yeah. So I remember getting a few licks. Yeah. I've always been a little chatty. I used to chat back, so I used to get a few licks. And I also remember specifically, we used to have to change our hairstyle every week.
Oh, really?
Had to change
we had to change. Girls had to change their hairstyle every week. So at the beginning of the week in assembly, a hairstyle was called.
Really?
So so hairstyle was called. So it is. I'm going to say hairstyle names that mean nothing to you. Shuku, patewo. Shuku was like a braided updo. Patewo was your hair braided to the side. Shadiadu was all back. Just got called different hairstyles. Like next week the hairstyle was Shadiadu, and then would come.
Was that helpful in life to have?
Till today, I change my hair all the time.
Really?
Like you'd see me again and my hair would be completely different.
Did you have purple hair?
I didn't have this hair this weekend. So it changes all the time. And I don't know if it's linked to that or just because I didn't see it as a problem. It was either that or the girls shaved their hair. Right. So I used to make sure I never wanted my hair shaved. We used to go and change my hair every week, and we used to have a woman locally that used to like braid our hair for us, and I'll never forget it because she used to have us, it'll be hot and would be sat between her legs, and then she braided our hair and my head would be between this woman's legs. I'd be like, I can't wait for her to finish my hair because she was sweating. It was hot. But yeah, that was just like some of my memories there, like went to school there. And then in 1997, my mum brought all of us back to England.
Okay, and so you've been away for like 6 to 7 years now. What can you remember the first moments where you saw your mum again?
Yeah, I like have a really nice story that I like, because up until I don't remember my mum in Nigeria. I don't remember her taking me to Nigeria. I was one, so
it weren't really.
Yeah. 1 year old. And I was told that she came to visit often, but I'll be very honest, I don't necessarily really remember it. But I always say like I remember meeting my mum for the first time. So we had got brought to England. My aunt had picked us up from Nigeria, brought us to England, and went to Manchester. So remember the flights were cheap for us to go to Manchester first. Went to Manchester first, and then we got a train up to London. And we got to London, Euston station, and I remember seeing this woman. I was like, that's mummy. And I just like ran to her. I don't know, something very familiar about her, looking at her. I don't know if I remember pictures, but I remember that moment being like, oh my God, that's my mum, and being very, very excited to be like with her. And it sounds really stupid, but it's like it was love at first sight. And I was like, oh my God, that's my mum. Because that day I remember till today, it was only recently someone told me maybe it was pesto. This will make sense when I tell the story. Pesto. I told the story about being on our flight from Nigeria to England and eating green spaghetti. And I was like, the spaghetti was green. And I remember thinking, I was like, this is what they eat in England, like green spaghetti. I remember telling a friend that story. She was like, what if it was pesto? And I was like, oh my God. It was probably just spaghetti and pesto. Yeah, I thought it was green. And I was like, oh my God, it probably was just pesto and spaghetti. But I didn't realise this. And because I used to, when I was in Nigeria in school, I used to tell all of my friends in Nigeria, because I was the only one who'd been to England, to be like, white people don't do this, because I was the only one who'd met white people. So I said, white people don't poo. I don't know why I had like made that up. I was like, white people don't poo. And they believed me because I was like, I was born in England. So I don't know why. It's like, I left there when I was born. I don't remember anything.
What a statement.
But I would just like say random things because I was like, because I've met them and you guys haven't. So I know.
Never seen them sit down.
Exactly. They just don't go poo. So that was a ridiculous lie that I have no idea. But yeah, I remember like seeing my mum at the station and being like, oh my God, that's my mum. And then we went to, there's pictures of us now the first time I was in England. Went to her house in Forest Gate, and which is where we like lived for years before we moved to Dagenham.
And then you said you realised that you only realised that you were black when you came to the UK. Why? Because
I lived in a country where everyone looked like me. Like I was aware I was Yoruba early because the language I spoke. So I was aware that different tribes or different races necessarily. Like I didn't like. We were all kind of like the same. There was no different, nothing made me different to anybody. And then it was when I came to England, I was like, oh, not only am I Nigerian and Yoruba, I'm black here. Like, I am different here. I'm not, that makes me othered here. So not only did I not realize I was black, I didn't realize, not that it's a problem, but it was a problem that I was also black. So it was just like, wait, what is this sort of thing? And like my mum has done a great job with all of us in like filling all of her kids with all of the confidence in the world. So like it was kind of because she thinks a great deal about herself. So she was like, well, if you're my kids, obviously you guys are good. Like don't worry about that. And her approach to if we got bullied or made fun of was like, it was always if someone hits you, you hit them back, and you don't come home crying that someone hit you. Like, what did you do about it? So I remember that like being my mentality in school, but realizing that was very different. I had an accent. It took me a while to kind of like get a British accent. My accent was very Nigerian. I said words wrong. I say a story about, I'd come back from summer holidays and they were like, oh, what did you guys get up to? And I got on stage and I was like, I went to the beach, thinking I was saying beach. Yeah. So classic. Of course, all the kids in the school class started laughing. I was like, what's funny? Like, this is where I went. But again, it's the accent. It's, I think there's something really interesting about learning English from reading it rather than from hearing it. You say words wrong because you say it how you think it's spelled, how you should be said, how it's spelled. Like, I use the example of Bicester Village. When you see Bicester, it sounds like it should have said Bicester or Bicester. Yeah. And if you've never heard someone say Bicester, you'd always say Bicester. So I'd always find it funny to mock someone doing that because clearly they've read it, they've learned it by looking at it. But just it's England, it's kids. Exactly. It's kids, so whatever. So I quickly, as kids do, be like, okay, cool. I need to get used to this. And then my mum had the weird thing where we weren't allowed to speak English in our household.
Okay.
She was really adamant about us like knowing Yoruba and retain that. So I would go home and have to switch to be like, okay, cool, not allowed to speak English here. So if I wanted to like ask for something, I had to ask for it in Yoruba. And I remember I hated it. Someone was like, oh, what is her problem? Blah, blah, blah. And now I think about it, I'm so happy she's done that.
So you can now still speak fluently Yoruba?
Yeah. Till this day, I can now speak it and understand it and all of that.
And your mum's advice about if you get hit back.
Yeah.
It sounds quite similar to your advice on the podcast to people.
Yeah.
It's maybe not the politically correct thing to say, maybe, but that's just really the truth.
It's very solution based. It's very like, because my mum, like, she's like, you don't get to come home and say this. She's like, you could get to come home and say this happened, but she's like, okay, cool. So what did you do?
Yeah.
It's not just this happened and I'm crying at home about it. No, but what did you do?
Yeah.
Like, how did you sort that out for yourself? Like I don't know if it was purposeful or not, but she raised very independent kids.
I think that's great advice. If you're a kid and someone hits you, if you hit them back, there's less chance it's going to happen again.
That happened again, exactly. And I think that's what it was because when I first got here, I think there was a very thin room for like, if I'd allowed it, I would have got bullied.
Yeah.
I had to very quickly be like, oh, not me. Like, okay, cool, I'm funny, I'm different, my accent's different, but you're not going to get away with bullying me. And also, like, nice.
And it worked?
Yeah, it worked. And it was like a soft landing because I went to school in Forest Gate where a lot of the kids were Asian and black. So it was a nicer soft landing. Then I think if I had moved here and we went straight to Dagenham, I think that would have been a lot more difficult for me.
So you go to Dagenham.
Yes.
This must have been like 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, very early 2000s.
Very white area.
For people that don't know, where is Dagenham?
So Dagenham, I mean, now apparently it's East London, but at the time was considered like the very edge of Essex.
I thought that was Essex.
Yeah. It was the very edge of Essex, Dagenham. It was when we'd moved there. It was being ran by the BNP. There were the local MPs in power.
Really?
Just to tell you,
BNP, they were in power.
Which is the British National Party. They were the government of the local place.
Wow.
And you get leaflets in, and it was quite overt, like, these people have come from this country, and it felt really direct. Like, they're talking about.
You'd get it through your door.
Yeah, through your door. Yeah. You just get it through your door, and it was like a normal thing. And it was, Dagenham was incredibly racist. We were like the first black family to like move into the neighborhood. Like, we would get like eggs thrown at us walking down. Like, someone once wrote the N-word on our doorstep, like pot someone's 4 tires. Would we go into school, and even like the black kids in our school, we used to get like chased. People used to use dogs to chase us.
What?
It was really like, it was incredibly racist, like incredibly. And I remember like a bunch of us after school would always go home in groups. We just knew something was going to happen, and we'd run and would be laughing. But now, like, it was never funny. Like, someone was chasing us with a dog because we were black kids.
Wow.
like literally.
What was going? Because you're what? 10. Early,
yeah, you're like,
early
yeah,
life.
like,
What are you thinking?
I feel like it wasn't a surprise to me. I feel like I'd always been told that England was unkind to black people. I'd always felt like it was kind of like you'd go home, and I'm sure many black kids had this as well. The problem was that it's because you're black. You know, you just face your books, you just do well, you just succeed, and it will be okay, sort of thing. Like, yeah, it's going to be hard, but you know, don't worry about it. Just face your fun. Was always the thing. Face your fun and try to keep safe. And like a lot of I'll speak for my mum, she was scared. So a lot of her thing was just out of fear to like get home at a certain time, because she was just scared that one day these people might actually physically hurt you. Like, so it was a lot of that. And it was all of us went with it, like dealt with it, like every single one of us. And it sounds so weird that it was like normal. Like we just kind of expected it. There was a certain street we walked down, we kind of expected it.
And there was a family that lived nearby.
Yes, there was a family that lived on my close.
Fascinating relationship with.
Yeah, right. So he was one of the boys that in the, do you know, like they don't do it as much, like where kids play out and everyone has like when you're in your local area. So he was like
football on the street.
Yeah, exactly. I guess he was like the leader of our little close, I guess. And I don't know how he grew up, but he absolutely hated black people. Like, I think he hated that we were new to the area, hated that we were black. And again, we are an all-female household. My mum and my two sisters. So there's all female. So there's no one for him to be scared of. Like, what are you going to do about it? And he was the one that put on mum's tires, and he was the one that wrote N-word on our doorstep. And so I remember one time my uncle came round, and mum was like, oh, that's the boy that's been troubling us. And my uncle gave him a beating. I'll be very honest with you. Like, you like, what is your problem? Blah, blah, blah. This whole thing went down. Then after that, his mum then made him come round with a bunch of flowers to apologise to my mum, to be like I don't think she realised what her son was doing. Wow. Yeah. I just don't think she knew what her son was doing. So she was told what he'd done, and he apologised, brought flowers round, and then weirdly as a teenager, I lost my house keys a lot. I don't know if anybody used to always leave them at home or lost. I was just not responsible for a house key. So anytime I'd got home and I was locked outside, the first time, I remember they were the only family I knew on the road. I mean, I only knew them because they were racist to us. But I went to go knock on their door and sat in their house. I was like, my mum's not home, I don't have my keys, can I sit here?
Can I sit in your racist time?
Yeah, can I sit here? Let's solve racism together. So it got to a point where anytime I'd lost my keys, that was the household I went to. And I think we cured racism because he was lovely to me. We got on fine.
Look at that.
And it became a thing where eventually we started seeing each other and be like, you all right? And it was like, that's insane how that's gone.
That is
just ridiculous.
It really is. I guess it goes to show that sometimes barriers can be broken. They're not, things aren't hard and fast. And also a bigger one, if you've got an issue, or if there's an issue, try and go to the head. Like, he was the leader of the gang. If you can go to the head and solve something there or create an agreement, then it will trickle downstream a lot easier.
Yeah. And then it got to a point where, like, my area became lovely. We played with the kids outside. Like, it was, because it's kids. Like, even his racism was learned. Like, there's no way that boy woke up and decided at 11 he's going to hate black people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's whatever he was told in his household, it's whatever he read, whatever at the time the media was saying, what the local government at the time was saying. Yeah. So there was all these people that were telling him that we were coming over to steal jobs.
It's weird when you say it back, isn't it?
Exactly. But yeah, and it was a really, really weird experience going through as a child. And it wasn't just, because I think when people talk about racism in England, they're like, oh, it's not over. It is. Like it's over, it's dangerous, and it's scary. It's not all, like, in all of the ways it shows up. And I think people like to give a UK pat on the back to be like, well, we're not Americans. Like, it's not that bad here. But it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so at the time you said your father stayed in Nigeria.
Yeah.
What was your relationship like with him when you were in the UK?
There was like, so he didn't, so when we left Nigeria, I didn't see my dad again until I graduated.
Wow.
Yeah.
You left when you were
when I was 7, and I didn't see him again.
So like 11 years.
Yeah.
Oh no, more like 14 years.
Yeah. I didn't see him again until I graduated university.
Graduated uni,
Yeah. And he called during the time he'd moved to, when we left Nigeria, he moved to America. We spoke to him. I always knew what my dad sounded like. There was a Nollywood actor called Jide Kosoko, and I used to always see him and be like, he looks like my dad. I think he's like, I don't know, I used to be convinced he might have been my dad. And then I watched Miss Doubtfire and I was like, one day my dad's going to do that. Like, he's just going to show up as a nanny dressed up or whatever. And he's going to show himself to be like, ta-da, I was your dad the whole time. And, but yeah, there wasn't much of a relationship really. Like, he sent birthday presents every so often, like sent Timberlands from America. I remember my first Timberlands being from my dad.
That's a good gift.
It was a good gift. But there wasn't much of a relationship really. Yeah, like spoke when he called and that was about it. And then I got to like my late teenage years and early 20s and I became very resentful for that. I started like ignoring messages, ignoring phone calls, and it would be like, I would call my mum to be like, can you please let her, like, not even can you please, like, oh, I called her, she didn't answer. But I just kind of felt like, oh, it's not enough. Yeah. And because I remember growing up for the longest time, so many people around me grew up with just their mums. I didn't think I lost out on anything. Just some people grew up and they're like, oh, I felt the absence of a dad. I didn't. My mum works very hard on being everything. And remember, we had a I love dad mug in my house, which is hilarious. My mum had bought it, obviously, to not make us feel left out about not having a dad live in our house. But yeah, there wasn't ever much of a relationship, and I got resentful about it in my early 20s, for sure, because I was like, wait, this makes no sense to me. Why were you not here? And I remember him being at my graduation, and I was like annoyed by it, because I think a little part of me thought, you don't get to, what did you do? Like, you don't get to then like be proud and be like have the honor of seeing your child graduate, but he was there. Which now I think about it, because he's no longer with us, that I'm happy he was there for now. But at the time, I remember being quite resentful.
I'm training back a little bit from before your graduation.
Yeah.
When you were 14, you met someone. How did this relationship develop?
Oh God, that's so I was like, I got into a relationship when I was 14. This relationship lasted for 10 years. So I went from when I was 14 till I was 24. And he was like in a year above me. He was the cool guy. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm so cool.
Which is a lot old. It feels a lot older.
It feels a lot older
than
what it actually is. Oh my God,
wow.
the year above, I was just like, wow. And all the girls in the year above liked him. But no, he picked me. And I remember it being like, and it was so weird thinking back at it now, because it was like, it was absolutely something that probably should have ended in like year 1 or year 2, because it was like consistently always like with other girls. There was always things coming up. There was always like me going through messages and doing this. He was like very controlling. It was just a lot. And I don't think it was until I got older and I was like in therapy, and she was like, you were in an abusive relationship. And I was like, no, I wasn't. Like, what are you talking about? No, I wasn't. I'm fine. I don't wear victimhood. So of course I wasn't. And I think at that age as well, I think I grew up in a really weird generation that thought having a jealous boyfriend was like because he really liked you. Having someone who pushed you around a little bit was because he really liked you. Like he only did that because, he cared about you so much that you brought out these feelings in him. And I remember there being an ad campaign. I can't remember who it was. I want to say NSPCC. I can't remember. But they did an ad campaign being like, it's not meant to look like that. Right. Yeah, like I remember seeing that when I was quite young, actually.
Really?
And I thought,
played out some scenes, and you're like, oh, that's us.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe it's not meant to look like that, sort of thing. And I think the campaign happened because I was around so many girls that thought, yeah, it's because he really liked you. I remember I'd like go out, because again, this relationship lasted for 10 years. I'd go out and he'd find out where I was and he'll come and drag me out of the club to go make sure that I went home and things like this. And I just thought, yes, because he really likes me. And then you grow up and you're like, no, that was abuse. Like he had no right to do that to you. And like, God knows what he was going on in his household. God knows how he was brought up or whatever. But that should have never happened to me. And it's, like I said, I don't know how to be like, I don't even like saying it because it makes me feel like I'm a victim and I don't know how to be one. I don't like the idea of being one, should I say. And not that, I don't know. And that's not to a reflection on how anybody else deals with things like that. That's not a reflection to how anybody else like titles themselves or deals with those kind of situations. It was just a hard thing for me to sit and swallow with, because I'm like, you're stronger than that. You're the girl. If someone bullies you, you hit them back. If like nobody, you're not that girl. And again, no insult to that girl, but that's what my mind used to be. You're not that girl that happens to. I see. That you're stronger than that. You're smarter than that. Like things like that just don't happen to you. And it very much did.
Even though it was.
Yeah. It was just different in my head.
So did you ever think about, I need to leave this person, or?
So often. I feel like it's so funny because when it finally ended, it was him that was like, I think I'd like caught him out on another thing. And at this point, I'm 24. I'm getting older. I'm not like for the crap anymore. And funnily enough, I think he ended it. Because every time I ended it, he'd always be like, oh, like, we'll work it out. We'll get back together. We'll start talking again. Or I will be like, oh, I'm sorry. I want to blah, 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 blah. And eventually he was just like, I think he was like, oh, whatever, man, I don't care. That's the thing. I'd last asked him about someone. He was like, yeah, so. And I was like, oh, okay, we're done. Like, and there was something very final about that being done. I remember calling a friend. And she's like, oh, you guys always back up. I was like, no, it's done. Like, it's done this time. And then that's when I went into, right, I'm going to be the best version of me. Like, who am I? Because I'd grown up kind of being like whatever version I thought he wanted me to be, like this, let's coined it a good girl. Like, whatever it was that kept him around was like, that was the girl I was. And I was like, okay, no, what do we want to do? And I'm just like, I'm really thankful that I didn't. I think it was really easy to like lose my head in that situation and like lose focus on education, lose focus on work. And I just didn't. Like, I stayed working, I stayed in education, like made sure I was still doing all of the things in the background well. Because even though when I was with me, it was all consuming, but I was still really aware. And maybe that's like a fear of my mum to be like, what do you mean you failed? But yeah, so then I had my education, I had my degree, I had my work to back up on it. And then I was just very like decisive on what it was that I was going to do with my life.
If you could go back in time and just speak to that Tolani during that relationship, and you're going through these things, what would you say to her knowing what you know now?
Do you know, it's really funny because I think that's a question people ask a lot, right? And I think when I think about it in terms of that relationship, me now is still very upset with her. Like, come on, you've always been like, yeah, so I think the question is her to tell me now to forgive her for letting that happen. Because my thing is that you let this happen to you. So I don't even think the thing is for me to go give her advice. I think it's for her to tell me that, I was only a kid, I didn't know. Like, allow me. Allow me, yeah. It was our first relationship. I didn't know it wasn't how it meant to go. Right. But when I think about this situation, I'm still really angry with myself for letting that happen.
Yeah. You shouldn't be yourself.
Yeah, but I'm still very like, because I know better than that. If that makes sense. Yeah. So I think that's more the thing, to be like, honestly, allow me. I didn't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, right, in terms of like it being a first experience of a relationship to just not know what's right, what's wrong, what's this, what's that.
Yeah. And like, I didn't like, not to make it cliche, I didn't have a dad at home, and I was just like, oh, cool. Like, this is normal then. Like, I didn't know what else looked like. I didn't know I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, and she might also say, do what you're doing now. Talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that other women can hear,
I find it extremely hard to talk about. Because I just like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? And it's still very self-blaming, and I'm very aware it's not my fault. But I think I still sit on that like, but you knew better. Yeah.
You can say one thing and feel a totally different thing inside.
Yeah.
To change that is hard work. Yeah. But like I said, I think other people hearing you talk about it will hopefully change some people's lives.
I hope so. And I know I have like a weird view about it, because I think many people have done a great job in accepting what's happening to them and forgiving themselves, and like, being able to be like, yeah, this person did this to me and I was a victim. I just find the victim word hard to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I'm listening to this and I might be, say I'm a woman, I'm in this kind of abusive relationship where there's physical abuse, mental abuse, and I'm like, okay, I need to get out of this. How can you, when you're out of that relationship, what's your advice for how to, because as you said, your whole identity is based on what this person wanted you to be. You now have to find out who you are. How do you do that? What do you do next?
I took the most cliche route. I just went out loads with my friends. Honestly, I can't even say it was this calculated route or whatever. Me and my friends went out a lot. I went to Ibiza 3 times back to back. I just kind of like, that was a big extent. It was like, what do I like? What do I enjoy doing? What's fun for me? And I really, really did focus on like my career. I really was just like, okay, we are going to make something of ourselves. Like like this version of what you thought life was going to be is not like, okay, cool, we're going to make something out of ourselves for sure.
So you went out and socialized.
Yeah.
Basically, people around you, friends around you, new friends.
Yeah.
That seems like a great way to go.
Yeah.
Kind of fill in the social calendar, as it were.
No, literally, I just got busy. Like, figured out hobbies and all things like that, what I liked doing. And it was like, and I remember seeing this quote on Instagram that time, and it was just like, what did it say? It said something along the lines of like, one day you won't like, you always thought you'd never live without them. Look at you living. And I remember when I first saw it, I didn't feel it, like, but I screenshotted it. And I was just like, maybe one day I'd feel this. And then I probably like a couple of years later, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm fine. Like, this thing that was all consuming that I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'd wake up every morning and be like, again, I'm still alive. Like, oh my God, I'm so heartbroken. I'm so upset. You just live. Like, you just
time heals.
Living. Yeah.
A lot of
It's
things.
so cliche, but it just kind of does.
It really does.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to break down your career up to this point, because we're going to get into the origin story of the Receipts podcast. But so 14, you got a job at Pizza Hut. You got sacked. You did 2 shifts at the Caribbean Scene restaurant, and then you were like, I'm not having this.
Not a bit of me.
H&M, upgraded to COS.
Sure did.
Then you went to Santander as a bank cashier. You went to Brunel Uni at some point during this, right? Yeah. Then you became an editorial assistant at Pro Hair and Beauty magazine.
Yeah.
And then eventually you end up at Buzzfeed. All right?
Yeah.
And it's while you're at Buzzfeed that the Receipts podcast is born as well. But before we get to that, what tell us about being at Buzzfeed, and am I right in saying were you one of the only black women in the office?
I wasn't the only. Do you know what? Even in applying for the job, right, there was a woman there called Bima Derumi, who till today I regard her so highly. And one of the reasons why I applied for, I was like, well, she's there.
I see.
Like, she's black, she's Yoruba. Like, I used to follow her on Twitter, and I thought she was so funny and so cool. And I was like, I'm going to apply for this job. And I remember one of my first days, I had a leopard print jumpsuit on, and I'd gone to the toilet. And because I thought so highly of her, I was scared to talk to her. Like, I didn't used to say hello. I was just like really intimidated by her, but not because she did anything to me, but because I just thought she was so brilliant. And I'd come out of the cubicle and she was there in the toilet, and I was like, oh my God, I can't even avoid it. I have to say hi. So I was like, hi. She was like, oh my gosh, you look so good. I loved your jumpsuit. You always dress really nicely. And I was like, like, if I could have framed that jumpsuit, I think I would have done. But she was a big reason why I did apply that. I think, so when I first started, there was probably like me, him, 4 of us all together.
In an office of how many?
Quite a lot. Yeah, it's a relatively big office. There's quite a lot of staff there. And it was possible. I can't say how many people, but like eventually it got a bit more mixed. A few other people joined further down the line.
And this was, what year did you join, roughly?
2016.
2016. Okay, cool.
2016, sorry if I'm right. And oh gosh, that feels like years ago now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was around that time. And the first year there, I was so happy. It was like my dream job. Like, I was like, this is brilliant. Like, there was a few like other work that I did that was missed out, but like I was just like, yeah, this is it. You could wear what you want. Your articles did numbers. Like, you learned what it was to be viral. Like, you just kind of, like, I always say it was the best lesson on the internet for me.
So you were writing articles that would go on BuzzFeed.com.
Yeah.
Basically.
About
what?
And I was the lifetime beauty writer. So that was like my thing. I was lifetime beauty writer. Like, I just learned so much about being on the internet. You learn about what worked, what didn't work. I learned how to weirdly it teaches you how to use Twitter really well. It was great for this kind of introduction of how to maneuver the internet, how to make sure things get seen, like what headline to use. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but BuzzFeed has really specific, like, we used to like 17 ways. We used to all those random numbers. And they just figured out what numbers worked. Like, it was incredibly smart how they made sure things were viewed and how they were read. And we kind of I left there with that. And also it was probably the most I'd ever been paid ever. So I was just like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I'm getting paid a decent amount of money. Because I remember like some people would complain about the pay, and I was like, boy, if you'd ever worked anywhere else, you would know that this is great. We got free lunches on Wednesdays and Fridays. We got free breakfast on Wednesdays. There was a snack room. Like it just felt so incredibly cool to me. Like it was like, yeah, this is it. You've made it. Wow. And now like I would go to like events or PR things, and the publication I worked for meant something to people. PRs wanted to meet me all the time. I was like, oh my God, you work at Buzzfeed, it'd be lovely to have a chat. Whereas before I was like trying to like sell to be like, oh, there's this magazine I'm working on, like please. But suddenly I like, it gave my career some version of a status, which is always really interesting, because that's what makes it hard to leave places sometimes. Because then you get to that point of like, now I don't longer work here. Who am I? Yeah. And like, as in, what does my name now mean? Like, because I could have gone anywhere to be like, oh yeah, I work at Buzzfeed, and I saw reactions change. So I'm like, oh, then what happens now if I don't have this big corporation or this big name behind me? But yeah, I loved it the first like year and a half.
And you described to us beforehand chatting that like I want to get across for maybe people listening who aren't black. What was it like to be one of the few black people in an office? Like, what is that like?
It's so funny, because I think BuzzFeed, especially in America, like, you know, I think it like was quite proudful of itself of being quite a diversity, and like wrote about things, and like there were times where I'd like fight for a certain article to be written. I'd be like, trust me, I know this, like even if it doesn't get the numbers, I know what this article means. Because I even remember like doing a panel talk, and someone was like, oh, why did you choose to work for BuzzFeed? Why not somewhere like black hair, blah, 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 blah. My first thing was money. Like I get paid a lot more here. And also I'd always wanted black content to be on mainstream media.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think it had to be a niche. I didn't think you had to go to some special place to go find it. I wanted it to be on a site. And at the time, BuzzFeed was one of the biggest sites, and have, things to do with your hair, and have black women lead it. And I used to make sure, like, because we used to use those as gifts, I used to make sure at least a couple of my gifts included black faces. So there was that interesting thing. And then you make friends with one of the only other black people in the office. And you had like it was kind of really similar office ball that you get as a black woman. Like you felt like you couldn't go to lunch together because it felt a bit funny. It felt like eyes were looking at you. Sometimes people confuse you for the other black girl in the office.
Well, if you're if just the black people have lunch together,
like, like, you felt the eyes to be like, oh, what's going on here? But again, I'm really grateful to Bim, because she did a really good job in introducing all the black girls that worked there. She made us feel comfortable, and even in a space that maybe wasn't comfortable, even when you like heard a couple of things here with it, I was like, oh, that feels uncomfortable, or just microcosms or things like that. She did a really, really good job of making us feel okay. And what I would say was just that later on, working there and being a black woman and trying to progress, or like be an editor, it just kind of wasn't happening.
What happened?
It just, I remember like being in an interview for it, and then she was just like, the person who was interviewed was like, you know, but as like a young black person, do you think people will take you, your team will take you seriously as a leader? And I remember like,
wow.
I was so confused by the question. I was like, there's no way you're actually asking me that, right? Like, as in, what do I say? Like, how's this answered?
Yes, actually,
yeah,
I do.
Yeah. Like, and I think I said something along the lines of like, I don't see how my race or gender should have anything with me getting respect.
No.
But I think it was such a clear sign of what she thought.
That's it. It was a clear sign like, of her biases, right?
Like, I'm happy for you guys to work here, but like, you don't get to be managers.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a clear sign of her bias. And I think once that happened, I just very quickly started falling out of love with the place. And then there was like a big other things happened. There was like a big redundancy thing that took place. And I till today think that was probably one of the funniest parts of my career. Like,
yeah.
It's insane. And I remember calling one of my first ever editors and be like, oh my God, this thing is happening and making redundancies. And she was like, oh, like, yeah, you work in the media. It was always going to happen in your career. Like, she was so blasé. She's like, if you know how many redundancies she's gone through or been, like, it's like, it's inevitable that's going to happen. Like it. And I remember during the redundancies happened, I didn't get made redundant, nor did I volunteer. And every day I wish I should, because I think I left approximately 3 months later. I remember one of the other black girls, who's one of my good friends now, Gina, we were talking and she was like, yeah, I'm handing in my notice. I was like, so am I then? Like, I'm not going to be here if you are, if you're not here. So we like handed in our notice at the same time. And one of the big things, I've always had a rule that like, if I ever found myself crying in the work toilets about work, I was going to leave.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All I said that to myself. I'd always said that if I was ever in a position where I find myself crying in a work toilet about work and being like, I can't, like it got me to that point, I was going to leave, and it happened. And I was like, yeah, I'm done.
I see.
Yeah.
And we're gonna kind of bring some of your raw saying how it is energy from your podcast. A topic I don't think I've heard discussed before, which might be helpful, is if any, because there's overt racism and then there's unconscious bias. Like people doing things they don't necessarily realize they're doing it, but they are. What would you say to people who aren't black in an office of what not to do if there are a group of people who, let's say, aren't white in an office?
Do you know what? I often don't even think they don't realise they're doing it, because I think there are certain questions or certain phrases that white people only exclusively ask people who are not white. Because I always there's a phrase like, when was the last time a white person said to another white person, oh, you're really well spoken? You've never said that to them.
Yeah.
That's never been a thought. But often they're like, oh my God, you're so well spoken. I'm like, why is that a surprise? But that's nothing you've ever said to another white person, because you assumed.
Totally.
Of course they are. So it's I remember I was the head of diversity at Buzzfeed, and we'll do meetings, but everyone that comes to these meetings knows. It's one of those ones that it's people who are not in the meetings that don't know. Everyone that comes there knows.
Oh, totally.
Everyone that comes there, everyone that's invested in going to a diversity meeting, no. So I remember being like, everyone has to come. I was like, it makes no sense to just be like, oh, it's a volunteer thing, you come if you want to. I was like, no. Everybody has to come, because it's
You're
people
speaking to the quiet, basically.
There's no point speaking to people who already get the point, who already know what it is. And there's loads of courses or things like that. But just be for real. I think people know when they're doing it.
Yeah.
I can't be convinced to be like, oh my God, I just didn't realise. And yeah, maybe an unconscious bias comes in every so often, but really dig into your conscious bias, because why is your unconscious bias that, oh, this person's black, they must have come from a single parent household? I said, why are all your unconscious biases racist? Why are they always negative? Why?
Yeah. I think maybe that's it. If you do grow up in Torquay or something, Devon or something, where you're surrounded by...
Torquay, the southwest part.
It's a long way from London. Surrounded by white people.
Yeah.
You don't maybe you've never interacted with someone who has a darker skin tone to you, and you basically people get taught racism, overtly and unconsciously.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it comes out, is in these scenarios when they, maybe they move to London and they start saying these things, and you're like, well, if you actually question them, why do you think that?
Yeah.
They'll realise, oh crap, I've had racist training. Basically.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there are some things that maybe are innate with people. I saw a video recently where it was just taking up physical space, and white women being like, they find it really hard to move. And it was a white woman saying it, that she finds it often when she's walking, she doesn't move out of the way for black people or black women. She feels like they should move out of her way. She didn't realise she did it because she kept getting barged every time she was in cities with black people. Yeah, wow. And that's what I made it really. She's like, oh, I don't move out of the way.
I see.
And it was just something that she just felt like it was an ownership thing and something that was in her. And I think I've got to a point of exhaustion as a black woman who's always trying to educate her. Like, oh, it's not like, don't do that. Do it like this. Do it like this. It gets boring.
Educate who, sorry?
And white people, to be like, oh, don't do this, don't do this, blah, 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 blah. It gets incredibly boring. And I even have a thing about saying white people, because it often offends white people to call them white people. And I'm just like, why?
You are white.
I'm stating it obvious. As in that there's no offence meant, there's no offence said or anything like that. And I don't know how to tell people to be on. I think one of the things I will say is ask yourself why you're doing that, which is what I do a lot. If someone says, I'm like, oh, why would you ask me that? And then have to sit in that uncomfortable thing of, actually, why did I ask her that? Why did I ask that? So maybe if you want to ask a question or say something, you'll be like, wait, why do I want to ask her that? But why do I not ask someone else that? Why specifically do I want that question for her? So you kind of realize, like, okay, cool, maybe there's a bit of an unconscious bias here. And I get it. I completely understand ignorance. I'm aware that people are ignorant. There's many things I'm ignorant about. So I'm not like, oh, you're an idiot, and write the person off completely. I understand ignorance, but also there are many, many means to educate yourself, especially in this day and age. There's podcasts, there's books. you don't have to burden someone else with that task, basically.
Got you.
Yeah. Because I even remember things like BuzzFeed, I'd write an article and let's say I'd put Bantu nuts, and I'll be asked to explain what Bantu nuts are for other people. And I was like, no, because my whole life I've consumed black media that has never explained anything to me, and I've just been told to accept it. I've watched movies my whole life where the girl would wash her hair every single day, and I'd be like, she's washing her hair again. Like, and nobody told me that she's what. Like, I just had to be like, oh, that's why. That's what I've been washing their hair all the time.
They also don't poo.
Exactly that. All of these things. I'm like, I was just told that's the norm, accept it. So I'm really big on doing things to be like, that's the norm, accept it.
And if you, so they have to go, I don't know what that means, let me go look it up.
Let me go look it up, exactly. There were many things, I had no idea what they meant. I went to go look it up. They're like, but things that were fed to me as the norm, but they weren't explained. And I think a lot of media will show a black person doing something and then it would explain it. It doesn't need explaining. Like, let them go, allow black people to have that familiarity of that, oh, this is for me. And if you don't know, go and research it, which I do for a lot of things. I actually don't know what that is. Like, there were many things I just don't know. I went to go find out. So do the same sort of thing.
Yeah. Google it. What's a plantain? Is that a really big banana?
Like, go find out what it is. Like all of that information is actually out there for you to go find out.
And yeah, we're not here to put hate on BuzzFeed. It's more using them as an example of what the experience can be like at different places. This is a long time ago.
Yeah, and also it's my story. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I said, I absolutely loved working there for a big part of it. But like, I think any black woman who's ever worked in any office in the UK or America will have the very similar stories, incredibly similar stories.
Yeah, and it was while you're at BuzzFeed.
Yes.
This is where the origin story of the Receipts podcast
This is where, I was
begins.
working at BuzzFeed when I started when I thought of the idea of the podcast. So I love podcasts. Like, I don't just do it. I'm a big fan of it. I genuinely, I'm a huge fan of it. Like, Audrey always jokes that I don't have a podcast for everything. I've got a podcast to sleep to. So like I'm like huge on them sort of thing. So
do you remember the first time you found podcasts?
Yeah, massively. Serial. I think it was at BuzzFeed. I think someone's wrote an article about it, and all these. There was just like, when you work in the media space, when something's happening, you hear buzz about it. So I was like, what is Serial? Like, what is this sort of thing? So I started listening to it.
On what platform was it?
So the podcast app on iPhones, it's been there a very long time.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was that.
Probably on there.
Yeah, it was that. And at the time, nobody really used the app, but it's been there for a very, very long time. I'm pretty sure it was that. Because I never watched it. It was never on video. It was just a thing you listen to. The Serial was based on a guy called Adnan, who was accused of killing his ex-girlfriend when they were in secondary school. And he was in jail. So the whole series is about him, the story. And basically, now he's been freed because it turned out he didn't do it.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's incredibly interesting. It was the podcast that kind of reopened up the case and everything. So I was obsessed with this podcast. Like, I would listen to it all the time. Like, I think I listened to the series, honestly, so quickly. And I don't know, I think there's something about it, like your brain being between your ears. I felt like it was going straight to my cranium. I was just like, oh my God, I was obsessed. I stopped listening to music just so I could get all my episodes in. Like, I was really incredibly into it. And then found others along the line as well. So I found more true crime stuff. Started listening to one called The Read, which is an American podcast hosted by Chriselle and Kid Fury. And it was more of a chatty. There was no crime. It was just two friends chatting, talking celebrity news, celebrity gossip, and just having a chat sort of thing. And I was like, I really enjoy this thing. Like, I would love to do one. And I had put out a tweet being like, oh, I'd love to host a podcast. I've got the name. I just need the girls sort of thing. So I didn't want to do it with my friends. Yeah, I just cause I didn't have many friends who were in the media space or would have wanted that kind of attention or would have wanted to do anything like that. And also I think sometimes storytelling with friends gets a bit capped. So if I'm talking about a story and my friend was there and then I say this, so she's like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's the end of the story. Her curiosity is kind of dead because she was there. She was a part of it. It just it's not that exciting for her.
So when you put that tweet out, are you thinking, because I want to leave here one day, I want to do my own thing? Like, why?
No part of me thought it was going to be because of how I am and what my personality is like, I knew it had to be successful in the sense of I wouldn't have carried on with it if it wasn't. right? So initially, even before I got into journalism and writing, I went to work on radio. I really wanted to be a broadcast journalist, like really, really badly. And I remember, I can't remember who it was. Someone said to me that, oh, your voice is mad annoying. I think it might be my ex, but your voice is mad jarring. Like you couldn't work on radio. Like scrap that dream. So I was like, okay, sure.
How wrong he was.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
now people listen to my voice. I mean, it might have been annoying, but hey, people listen. So I'd put this tweet out and a bunch of people had replied. Like podcasting was like picking up ish. We had like...
What year was this?
2016, 2017 times. Yeah. And remember 3 shots were going and that was like getting a bit like people really 3 shots tequila was a UK podcast hosted by 3 guys at the time. And it was getting like, you know, people were loving it. They just spoke. It was very like lads kind of vibe. And then I like everything I'd listened to, no one sounded like me. No one was from the UK. So I was like, okay, what does this sound like if we talk outside of a male gaze? Like we just kind of like get to a space. So a bunch of girls replied and I went on and DM'd a lot of the girls and be like, hey, like I'm very serious about this thing. Send me over your emails. And you know, people fall by the way. Someone is like, oh, it's not just a tweet anymore. It's actually a thing that she's trying to do. So got emails and then got numbers. Started a group chat. At this time there was like 5 people, and then we were like, cool, let's meet up in real life and have a chat. And Taser, he was a part of 3 Shots, had come along to this drinks as well. So what was meant to be like a quick after work drink, because I remember leaving the Buzzfeed office and walking down the road to go meet everyone, we were there till like closing of the bar. Like we were all talking, we had so much in common. Me and another girl found out we were dating the same guy at the time, which I thought was hilarious.
The same guy at the same time.
Yeah, which I thought was so funny.
You both thought you were exclusive with him?
I don't think I did. So I wasn't that bothered. I remember being like, content.
I see.
This is good content. This is juicy. And then so we spoke for ages, and then one of the girls,
this is 5 of you,
5 of us at this time. So then we were like, cool, let's record an episode. And we did it in Jukebox, went into this record studio, paid £10 each or however much it was for us to get the studio. We spoke, awful episode, it was just a mess. And then one of the girls...
So she recorded it. Do you listen back to it on your own or together?
Listen back to it on my own.
And you were like...
It just wasn't good.
This is rubbish.
None of us knew what we were doing. We were all just talking over each other or not talking at times. It was just... chaotic, it was just chaotic and in a mess.
So did you send it to the
yeah, I did. Yeah. I was just like, I think we should go again. Yeah. So at that point, one of the girls decided she was, I think she was she was a musician at the time, and she decided she just wanted to focus on her music. Was like absolutely fine, like so. And then there was 4 of us left, so we were like, cool, we're gonna like launch with this 4 of us, and recorded another episode that went better. And during the time we're working on back end, what do we want to call it? What do we want the artwork to look like? We're doing all of this, and me and one of the other girls, Phoebe Park, we both worked in the media. So she was a journalist as well as a journalist. So we're both really aware of how things had to be put out. Right? At the time on Twitter, I watched the hashtag, let's search a name that a hashtag doesn't get used of. Like, so initially we went to call ourselves No Filter. Search that hashtag, there was so much it will get lost in noise. Like
hashtag No Filter was
exactly. Like it would get lost in so much noise. And then I had a name that I think is great, which was the initial name. I'll say it, you can beep it out if you want. It was going to be called Cocktails and Tales, which I thought was so
that's
strong, yeah.
So in my head it's still strong, but you wouldn't have seen it on billboards. It wouldn't have gone the long haul. But at what time I was like, this is hilarious. This will go like, and then so we decided not that. And then we thought, okay, cool. Like if we stay on the drinking round of like pre-game, again wasn't a name suggestion, or pre-drinks. Sorry, kind of didn't work out either. Can't Deal was another name that we tried, didn't really work out. And then decided on the Receipts podcast. But at the time, like culturally, there was loads of things being like, oh, what the receipts? Show me the receipts as a form of like your evidence, your proof. And there was an interview with Whitney Houston. I say this story all the time. And Diane Sawyers. And Diane Sawyers is accusing Whitney Houston of being on drugs. It's a famous interview.
Oh,
it's the one where she says crack is whack.
Yeah.
Oh. And in this interview, Whitney's like, show me the receipts. Like, what are your receipts? Like, you say this, cool, show me the receipts. So I was like, brilliant.
So yeah, receipts means proof.
Receipts means proof. Yeah, our stories is our proof of our life, of all of that. That's our proof. So the Receipts podcast. So went along with that. The artwork was going to be someone holding the receipt. We're very thinking to be like, it has to be a black hand holding the receipt, just so you know what you're getting before like you get here. We were all quite like, we want people to know who we were. So like it didn't have our pictures. Yeah, it was just audio this time. We didn't have our pictures. We had like our social ads, but we're like, it's cool, people won't notice. We had little nuggets, like the barcode number was all of our birthdays, but it was kind of like little nuggets on it that we knew, like, and I still love it till today. We were very adamant about the watch the hand was wearing to look like a Michael Kors watch, because at the time that's what like our age group was all into like it was very specific and being like, and here's who this is for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that was, outside of having our pictures, that was a big thing for us. So yeah, drew that out. It got made, pink background again, like black women within a certain age group. We felt like it said that whole story in that. And then we recorded the first episode. This was already the thing, and then I got very scared about putting this episode out. I was like, I can't.
Why?
Like, I think I just got really like, what if it's not received well? What if no one listens to it? Like all of that. And at this time, we were only on SoundCloud.
Because there is a thing with that. If you're starting something new, you're saying to everybody else, I'm good enough for random people to listen to me. And you're like, oh, but what if nobody does? And it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Because you made such a, like, you posted on social, made such a song and dance about this, and it turns out nobody's listening to it.
And at the start, that is kind of, especially now, at the very start, unless you've got a big, whole company behind you pushing you get into the top of the charts, it's kind of like, oh, they're off starting this thing. See how long they last.
Exactly. And at the time, nobody was really, like, there wasn't many podcasts that were launching. So it was like, it was relatively new, especially with women just talking how we were going to be talking. And I remember it was put out, and we had a thing of like, okay, if we all send it to 5 friends each, at least this amount of people would listen. So we were very unashamed of like sending it via our WhatsApp contacts, posting it on our socials.
I think we did the same thing. I remember us watching like, okay, send it to everyone.
Yeah, literally broadcast. Like, hi guys, I've started this new thing. I was like, hey, like 5 of our friends listen, like it will be fine. And I remember it going out, and I honestly went to sleep because I was like, I did not want to hear anything about it. I was just like, also, side note, sleeping is my favorite mechanism to cope. I just went to sleep. I was like, if I don't see it, cool, whatever. And Audrey, who did this podcast, she was completely opposite. She was like checking. She was like, and she kept like, when I woke up to loads of, she was just like, this amount of people have listened, 200 listens, 400 listens, 500 listens. And I think we ended the first day with like 2,000 listens, and we were so happy. We were like, oh my God, this is brilliant, sort of thing. And I always jokingly say that, like, if you want to listen to the first couple of episodes, you have to do it in a silent room, because honestly the audio is so bad. It's so quiet, like you can't hear anything. Production is awful. And so we started like putting episodes. It was every 2 weeks episodes would come out, and it kind of got the ball rolling. I'll be like, episode 5 was one of the first episodes that really took off for us.
What's the name of that one?
It was called Daddy Issues. It was like an episode where we were just talking about relationships with our dads and things like that. And I think it was probably one of the first episodes that like we cried in it, and it was very vulnerable, and people were like, oh wow, okay, cool. So they're going to be vulnerable. They're actually going to be very honest. Because the big thing for us was we didn't want to have this status thing. It was like, you can sit with us. We're all in this together. This is our stories and your stories. Like, we weren't trying to make out like we were cooler than what we were. We weren't trying to make out that like things didn't happen to us, or we didn't collect L's, or guys didn't break up with us, or guys didn't cheat on us. And like, we weren't trying to be the cool girls. We were trying to be the, oh my God, like we're the relatable girls sort of thing. And yes, it was going like, 2 years? And then we started doing live shows. You started kind of like our faces kind of getting people kind of like, oh, you did this podcast. Like, it kind of became a thing. We started doing like talks at offices, or like via come and invite us to come and do a talk. Like little things like that. We started just doing small. Again, we weren't earning a penny off the podcast. If we didn't do a live show, we didn't earn any money. So it was all of our money that we were putting in.
And was that your idea to do a live show?
No, we went to do a live show for ages, but just as a way to make money. So we just kind of like, we just thought it'd be a way to make money from ticket sales. And I remember our first live show was in Zinc in Shoreditch. It's like a bar type thing, and I think the tickets were like, I think it was like 200 people. And again, we were like, okay, cool. If you can get 10 friends each, that's this amount. And then we just need blah, 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 we just invite them. And then...
And you're working at Buzzfeed all this time?
I'm still working at Buzzfeed. Yeah. Wow. Still working at Buzzfeed. And again, I think it sold out in a day. And we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Cool. Yeah. So that was the only way we saw money if we did a live show. We didn't do them that often, sort of thing. So everyone's still working, investing money into this thing, hoping that let's just see what happens. So Phoebe decides to leave because it just kind of... She just said she just wasn't enjoying it anymore, and it was becoming bigger, and it's just something that she just wasn't enjoying as much. So like she left, so now there's 3 of us.
Fun fact, I was on LinkedIn yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, I saw Phoebe Park on there. I was like, oh yeah, Phoebe. I was like, oh, it's the same Phoebe.
Yeah.
I went to school with Phoebe.
Oh, did you?
We're in the same class for years.
Incredibly smart woman.
Yeah.
It's just said it just wasn't for her anymore, and it was like fine. But I remember panicking, thinking, oh my God, we're such a cliche. Things with women never work out. It's gonna seem like women fall out. It's gonna seem like it was just kind of like, oh God, it's gonna be horrible, and we might not be able to carry on after this. I was just really like about it all again because like I like to liken it because there was nobody else that I could compare what the receipts were to, and people I could liken it to were like girl groups. And I'm like, you see it all the time, or one girl leaves the girl group and it starts to go to crap, and oh my God, this is what's going to happen to us. And the chat is going to be, women can never do something successful together. There's always going to be blah, 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 blah. So she left, but luckily it carried on, and it went bigger, and it did better, and it was doing really, really well. Like, we're getting numbers in. We're now going to a weekly. We're getting dilemmas in. We had a little run with BBC where we had a show with them for like BBC wanted to I guess not sign us or whatever that looks like, but like wanted us to do things for them. But we were like, let's carry on doing our own thing and then just do a separate side thing for the BBC. Just so if anything happens, we still have our thing.
Yeah. And you're still working at this point?
Still working at this point. Still working full time at this point. So it was kind of like all working around this. And then I'd seen news about Spotify. Like Spotify was just kind of like getting invested in podcasting. I'd seen that in America, I'd seen that they'd signed Joe Budden, and I just seen, but I was, that's interesting. Like what Spotify is doing, and I just kind of like started following a bunch of people who worked at Spotify. I was just kind of like interested to see what was happening next. And again, like I love podcasting, so I was also invested in podcasting news.
And at this point, how many listens are you getting on episodes?
Oh, we're going to the hundreds of thousands a week now. It's getting momentum.
Making any money from sponsors or anything?
Nothing. We didn't do any ads. We still weren't making a dime.
Hundreds of thousands of views. No sponsors.
No sponsors. No adverts. The only adverts we were getting at the time was people trying to advertise mattresses.
Yeah.
And do you remember that early days of podcasting? Yeah. It was Acast or mattresses, and those were the only people that would do, and we didn't get any. And not Acast, sorry, Squarespace or Market It or mattresses. So we weren't making any money, but we were still putting money into it. So, but we were just doing loads of different things. Radar Radio was a thing. We did a thing with Radar Radio for a little while. Did a thing with BBC. But for example, the BBC would pay us for the time that we, so that time we're getting that BBC money, which is not a lot of money, but like it was just something. And then we started being like, cool, we should like register as a company. We like, because at this time we didn't have anything. We just like, we just come and chat every week. So we're like, cool, we should actually probably do this properly and register as a company and actually figure out what this looks like, who owns what, and blah, 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 blah. So we did all of that, sorted out our housekeeping. So like, cool. So again, like I was saying with Spotify people, they're doing stuff. And I'm like, cool, they're invested in podcasting. And I started following random people that worked there and things like that. And
this is after how long of doing the podcast? Like halfway through?
About
4 years?
4 years.
So this must be about 2020, roughly?
2019, I reckon. About 3.5 years in. 2019 it was, yeah.
This is just before the Rogan deal, like where everyone woke up like,
to be like, whoa, what's that?
And
I, oh God, wish I got half of, but yeah, there's money in podcasting.
Even 10%.
Honestly, I would find about 1% of what that man got.
Well, we should say, what did he get, Joe Rogan?
It was 100 million for the 5 years.
I remember. Yeah. And I remember the Call Her Daddy came out thing, and she got, well, then what was reported, I don't know if this is factual or not, she was reported to have got 60 mil.
Right. And that's for the rights, honestly, for the show for like 4 years. Don't look at me like I owe you anything, because I did not get anything neither. So I promise you not, like, I'd been a different, you would know. You would know. If I got that 60 mil deal, you would know.
Anyway, I'd seen that someone had tweeted that, you know, some news as it goes, she's got a role at she was now in a role at Spotify, head of podcasting or something. So I like DM'd her. I was like, hey, congratulations. You know, I do this podcast called The Receipts Podcast, blah, 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 blah.
DM'd her on what?
On Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, it'll be great to like have a coffee or just like, just for advice, you know, get someone to get to know you. And I remember going with a friend of mine called Renee Richardson, who is brilliant. She owns a podcast company called Broccoli now. And she very early on, she used to work at Acast, and very early on, I honestly want to say 3 episodes in, message us to be like, hey, I just want to meet up to give you some advice. Didn't ask for anything, just like, here's some advice. Nice. Here's what's beneficial. Here's what you should do. She was the one that said that we should make the dilemmas another episode. Like she just gave us this, like, I honestly, like, I'm so grateful for her. So I don't know why she did it. It was just that, like, and I think for her, maybe it was like, these are black people doing something. Let me tell them what I know. And I'll forever appreciate her for that. So she came to this meeting with me because I was like, oh, can you come with me? Because it was going to be part, like, pitch the receipts and pitch other things to be like, oh, I've got other podcast ideas as well. Here's this thing, blah, 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 blah. So this conversation happens. Long story short, they're like, so what if we can sign you?
What are you thinking?
I was like, this is brilliant. Like, this is amazing. And it's really funny. So early days, I remember I sent it to the group. I was like, I'm going to put this here. So when it happens, you're going to not say I'm full of I had a dream that we got signed to Disturbing London, really random. And it was a big thing. It's one of the first UK podcasters to get signed to a record label, a music record label. And that was what my dream was. Like, it was a big thing in the news. I was like, you know, music record label signs. Like, obviously we didn't get signed to Disturbing London, but I think about it and I was like, no, that's what, if I was a music space, I think maybe that was this kind of like, thing. So anyway, so we ended up like signing to them, and that was like, we still owned our stuff. I think still belongs to us. But they, I guess, lack of a better word, lease it. So it exclusively was only on Spotify at this point. So made this announcement, and everyone's really happy.
It was 2020, is it?
2019, I want to say. Yeah, kind of like, so then this happens and we're finally making money. Like, finally making money. And at this point, so I'd quit Buzzfeed.
Okay.
Before the Spotify deal had happened, because I had, I'd become like unhappy in it really. And I remember sitting down with the girls, I was like, I'm going to go freelance and I'm going to see what the podcast looks like when someone's full time on it. Like, when someone actually gives it its full attention, what can we actually do? So I was taking meetings here or there. I had just got an agent for like writing and stuff. I remember even getting an agent, and she'd like DM'd me about like wanting to be my agent. And just before she DM'd me, I'd wrote a piece for a newspaper, and they had paid me 50 quid. And I remember when I meant to go like, how much do agents get? And it was like 12-15%. And I was like, she wants to get 50% of my 50 quid. She can get lost. Like, I'm barely earning enough
I need
money.
That 25 quid.
Like, I'm going to need the whole thing in my account. And I remember speaking to a friend who's also a writer, and she was like, oh, I've got an agent and it's one of the best things that ever happened to me, blah, 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 blah. She was like, her money tripled. I was like, so 150. All right, cool. So we had a meeting, I signed on to an agent, and it was great. And it wasn't like writing in terms of, it was like, I'd always been interested in writing film and television and writing shows and books. And that's always been something I really wanted to do. So she like opened up that world to me. And yes, I'd quit Buzzfeed, was going to go to do the receipts full time, really concentrate on it, take meetings, go meet with people, figure out what podcasting news was, reach out to people, blah, 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 blah. So like, luckily I did that. And then we were in a position where it got signed to Spotify. And so what we've been with Spotify now probably about 3 to 4 years, I want to say. And it's been great. Like, it initially went from like all exclusive to now it's just video exclusive. So you can hear us everywhere else, but visually you can only watch us on Spotify. And even to go to video, we went on video for years. Like, because many podcasts launch after us, went straight to video. We didn't do video for a very long time. And I look back now, there are many of missed opportunities, many of money left on the table, many things I still think now that are like, we should be better. We should be doing more. And it's a constant like struggle that I have with, I don't like, when something happens, I'm not excited because I'm like, yeah, but it should be better than that. Like, we should be doing better than that. And me and Audrey, so big part of the story, Millennial, who was the third co-host, left she left the podcast as well. Like, just in-house stuff went on, wasn't great. And
can we read what she wrote on Instagram?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
18th of October 2023.
Dun dun dun.
Milena, one of the 3 hosts of the podcast, posted she was leaving the podcast. I wanted to share with everyone that after some careful thought, I've decided to leave the Receipts podcast. It's been a difficult decision that has weighed heavy on my heart for some time now, and though it's been tough, I believe it's what's best for me. The podcast will continue, and I truly wish Audrey and Tolly all the best with it. Making a show with them has been a truly life-changing experience. I'm deeply grateful for the love and support that has surrounded me over the years. I'll forever hold a special place in my heart for our listeners. Thank you all so much. Love you always, from your mamacita, Milena Sanchez. Love, heart.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not a show to create. We're not here to create drama or gossip or blah blah blah, anything like that. But you did. Yeah, you spent 7 years together.
Yeah, 7 years together. It's so funny because at the beginning of 2023, that was our 7th year, I started consistently joking about the 7-year itch. Because I've always found a 7-year itch. I just always thought it was an interesting concept. 7-year itch is a lot of relationships and marriages end in the 7th year.
Oh. How interesting.
It's a big thing. Like, there's a big change in the 7th year.
Right.
Yeah. So I used to be like, 7-year itch. I would joke about it. And we were going to do a big show at the end of the year. And I was just like, let's call it the 7-year itch. Like, to do our anniversary, let's do this whole big thing about it or whatever. Unbeknownst to me, the 7-year itch was knocking right at my door.
Right there.
They'd be like, honey, scratch me.
Milena's probably thinking when you said that, yep, it's coming.
Yep, it's coming, sort of thing. And that was incredibly difficult for me.
Did you know before that post came out? Did you know?
I knew before that post came out. Yeah. So we knew that because and also
let you know?
Audrey was pregnant at the time as well. So Audrey was pregnant. Milena was going to leave. She'd let us know by email. Honestly, on a random day, she'd emailed us to be like, yeah, she was.
Was it
out.
a shock to you?
Massively a shock to me. And it's really thinking because like you work with someone for that long, you like they become part of your life. And because of how we worked, we all met each other's families. We knew each other intimately. Like we spoke every single day for the past 7 years. So it was a shock to me. I was her really sad about it. And also a big thing was like, I've always had a big fear of failure publicly. I'm not scared of failure. I'm not scared of like starting again. I've pivoted a lot in my life, so I'm okay with it. But I think I've always had a big failure of public failure that I feel like I can't get back from. Like, crap, what do I do sort of thing. And like when that came out, there was loads of like, again, because of what my personality, like I'm very quick. I'm very like, there was like, oh, I kicked her out. There was just loads of narratives like surrounding the whole situation. And I took a big brunt of that. And I was okay with that because I'm aware of my personality. I'm aware that for people's worlds to make sense, there needs to be a villain and a victim. So that makes sense now. I've worked out the story. It's all, like, no nuances weren't taken into. And my feelings or how I would have been wasn't taken into or whatever. But that was like it was a big thing. It's incredibly hard. And I was like, I remember thinking, is this going to carry on?
This could be the end.
Yeah, this could be the end. And even like before it all happened, there was a big thing where I was like, this podcast needs to change. I was just like, there needs to be a change. And I'd say it to the girls. I was like, it needs, like, I wasn't happy with how it was going. In the sense of that, like, I'd been here 7 years, we'd all grown up, and I didn't think it like it was growing up with us. It just didn't feel like it was growing up. It just felt like it was really stagnant in a place. And I remember feeling really like something just has to give. And I didn't know what that was. And no part of me thought that would be someone leaving, I'll be honest. But I just thought something has to give. We'll work out what it is, sort of thing. And it was coming up a lot in therapy. I was like, to the point that I think there was one point I was like, I don't know if I want to do it anymore. Oh, wow. Yeah. I just don't know if I want to do it anymore. Like, it's not how I want it. And I don't know if I want to do it anymore.
So this was last year you were thinking?
Yeah, this was last year. Yeah. Like I was just like, I don't know. I felt like I was like wearing jeans from when I was 18 years old. And I was like, these jeans are so tight. Okay, they still fit me, but they're hella tight. I can't sit comfortably. I can't have a full meal without unbuttoned. Like it just felt really...
feel myself.
Yeah, I just felt rigid and tight in it. And again, no part of me thought it would have been someone leaving. And I'm one of those people where it's just like, I might be like, oh, damn, this is the end of it, whatever. But I'm gonna make it through. Like I said, like I am gonna pivot. I'm gonna be like nothing gets me going, then people assuming I'm done. Like, oh, wait there. So like as in like, cool, wait there. So and then this happened, and thankfully we were just like, cool, let's take a break. Like it was like, let's.
First time you'd ever done
First
that
time
in 7
ever.
years.
I'd never missed an episode. Like weekly, every single week, never missed an episode, never not bought something out. So we took a break from like November to January. And it worked out great. Audrey was having her baby. She had her little girl. And I was going a really difficult time. My mum's sick at the time. So there was like loads of things just happening that a break was just like, yeah, let's just have a break. And many podcasts do seasons and have it. I'm just like, I don't know. We've just always just kind of kept going. So we had a break, and I remember calling Audrey one day, and I was like, we're going to carry on. Because she was just like, she didn't know. Like, she didn't know if I still wanted to do this. She didn't know she's going to have her child and not have a job to come back into. And I was like, we're going to carry on. Take your time. Like, be with your child. Don't worry about this. And I just got busy. I was making decks about what I wanted it to look like now, what the reimagined version of it was. Our team was brilliant.
Were you concerned that Spotify would go, now that you're not the three of you?
Yeah, because we weren't in a deal.
You weren't?
We weren't in a deal at that time. We hadn't like redone our deal. So we were like, yeah, this is a great time for them to be like, all right, bye.
Like, easy.
Yeah, it's not, like, it's not what we signed up
nothing.
for. Like, this is not what we wanted, sort of thing. And I was
that's how you're earning money from this thing.
But I was willing for that to be like, okay, that might be a thing. And it's okay. We'll figure it out, right? Like, we're not at beginning stages of podcasting anymore where it's just like, there's no other avenue. There's other avenues now.
And what had your views got to at this time?
Oh, right. It was insane. It was like, it was consistently really good. Like I can't tell you, but like consistently we'd got a community, we'd got an audience, and then there was the worry of like who was gonna stop listening because they maybe only listen to Millennial, because we all had such different personalities. You came here for different people.
And describe Millennial for people who don't know, haven't met her.
Millennial is Latino, and she is woman, Latino. She is
similar age to you guys?
She's a bit younger than me. She is a couple of years younger than me. She is LGBTQ+. She is has a daughter. So she she comes with her own stories, comes with her own experiences as well. So it was just like, and that was going to be two black girls. Like, this is what it is now. This is what's left. And so what does this look like now? How are we going to like tell this story? What does this look like? Dealing with the backlash of it publicly. And like, it's really funny because as much as I love what I do, whatever, I don't like, I don't really love attention. I don't love being the topic of conversations and stuff. Like, it all just makes me feel like, oh, like, I just don't love it. But there was no avoiding it that time. It's just what it was. And we'd always been like, hey, everyone gets their time. This is just our time. Like, it is what it is. Like, we will move past it. And I'm so grateful to Audrey for her friendship, because outside of the podcast, there was personal things. Like I said, my mum's sick. And there was just a lot going on. And her friendship was just incredible. And we were just like, okay, great. This is the time we rejig it. We get a new setup. We get new like artwork. We get new it becomes a new show. It's still the legacy, the Receipts podcast that it is, but it has to grow up.
So do you speak to Millennial at the moment?
No, not at the moment. No.
Do you hope that you will again?
I don't. No, I don't actually. No. Okay. No. Yeah. No. Like it's fine.
What did you like about her when you worked together?
She was a good person. She has a very open heart. She wears her emotions on her sleeve. I can't say she wasn't a good person. She a lot of fun as well. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this new chapter.
Yeah.
You repitched to Spotify.
Yeah.
And they say what?
No, honestly. So we had to go tell them to be like, hey guys, this thing is happening. And obviously they go back and figure out what they want to do and things like that. But they were incredibly supportive. Like, even the new setup, they were on board with it. So I didn't want to be like, just go back to them with like, hey, this is happening. But I went to, this is happening and here's what we have planned. It was important to still sell them, to be like, we still heavily believe in this. And I'm so grateful that they were so like, so do we. Like, we still believe in this. It's not a thing that where we think we don't believe in this. So we have a great relationship with them. They're incredibly understanding and they really do believe in the show. Like, they they like us and we like them. So went to them to be like, and here's what we would like. And also when we were asking us that, and would like you to pay for it too. So there was that part of it. And yeah, we have 2 great agents that were amazing and like everybody just did a great job with us and took care, like, because it like a lot of care was needed in that moment, because it wasn't just a business move now, it was personal, like friendships were lost, so a lot of care was used, which I'm really grateful for.
So yeah, this new deal with Spotify happened at the start of this year.
Yeah.
2024.
So it was all signed at the end of last year, but it didn't start till January the 8th was the first episode that came out this year.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the response, by the way? Obviously, your fans had listened to 3 of you for
a
many
very long
years,
time. Yeah.
And then it's 2 of you.
It's so funny. So obviously, like, we had an influx of people listening just to be like they want to know the gossip, like they want to know what it said and what it was, blah 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 blah. And the episodes came out, and honestly, our fans have been amazing. It's so funny because you see the occasionally just like, oh, to be fair, I really enjoy it. And I think like even the ones that were like saying, be like, oh no, do you know what? The dynamic feels better. It feels like a different show. There's been a lot of commentary on like the new set. Was like, there's an upgrade here. There's a shift. There's a change. So I'm really happy that they see that change as well. We're talking about more grown up things. I'm 34. Audrey's 38. Like we're not the girls that first started. Right? Our lives have changed so much. So the comments have been so good, and I was incredibly scared to be like, oh God, will it just lose? And the fear wasn't that I doubted myself or Audrey in any way, shape or form. I know we have every capacity to do it. It's just change. It's different for people. And that's all it is. People just have to get used to change and what it was, and this is what it is now. So it was never a fear of, oh, we're not going to make it, blah, 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 blah. In fact, I was like, we absolutely are. I've never been so encouraged in my life. I was like, we absolutely are. So yeah, it's been great. Like people are really into it again. And it's great because it's opened up a new world. The conversations, us being 2 black girls now, it's opened up all new different audiences as well. We see it in our social, the growth. We see it in people like, I just started listening, and we stopped getting that for years because we became the same people. And then we're getting alerts of, oh, I just saw you guys and I just started listening and I'm going back to episodes and blah 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 blah. Nice. They're going to be incredibly confused and they're like, hey, here's this voice. Wait, here's this voice. Depending what order they're doing this, it's going to get incredibly confusing for them. But yeah, the reception has been amazing.
Cool. Let's get on to, we spoke about a bit earlier, you spend your whole time hearing these stories from other women about what men are up to, and they're never good things in your receipts, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what does doing the Receipts podcast make you think about men? What do you think about men? Oh
God, do you know what? I'm getting to a place now where like, nothing surprises me anymore. I still used to get quite surprised. I'm like, no, impossible. But I feel like near enough 8 years in, I'm like, yep, sure. I guess he's cheating. I leave him, sis. Like, and it's one of those ones that you don't let it permeate your everyday life, because like you realize that your relationship with people can be like, you feel like you can smell bullshit from afar away. But I'm really big on these are not my lived experiences. These are things that happen to other people. And yes, I believe in learning lessons from other people, but I don't believe in carrying their pain from it. Like I can learn from you, but I don't hold the resentment you might have against a man to other men that I might meet or whatever. So I understand it's a lesson learned, but it's not on a free fall. It's not information that goes around everything sort of thing. And like, we hear nice stories as well. Like it's not often, but it's not often at all. But every so often we get a nice story and nice experiences.
Do you think all men cheat?
Given the opportunity, I do think they do.
What do you mean by that?
I think if the opportunity was right there for them to take it, I think the likelihood is that they would take it.
Likelihood.
You guys are men. Tell me thoughts. You think all men cheat?
No.
Okay. Comment.
That was good.
What can I say? No.
It's not convincing. So Audrey, who does the podcast with me, is convinced that monogamy is not natural. She's like, we're not meant to be like this. Like, she's like, okay, so it's just not meant to be a thing. That's why we don't know how to do it well. So, and I'm like, no, like, lovely. But she's like, no, it's not real.
And is she okay with that, or she wants it to be real?
She's married. She's married with a kid, so I don't even know what she's on about. She's on some of this, and she's gone up and married a man and had a kid with him. But I think she's okay with it.
Yeah, I think there's true love, like super true love, and then there's also the other side of the scale where, you know, the man might be the chief of the village or the chief of the area, has resources that can then support multiple wives or spouses. So it couldn't be seen in the kind of frame of traditional love, how we would see it here, monogamy, but there are places in the world where it does work well. Well, let's say it serves its purpose where it is.
I'm deep in thought about it all now. I think.
So I was thinking maybe I could have 5 wives.
And what I'm thinking is, I think men are much more likely to cheat than a woman. I think it sort of seems to be.
I don't know, man.
I've
heard some stories. Smarter cheats, but still cheats. Men may get caught out more.
I think women get caught out less.
Yeah.
But they're smarter about it.
Right.
And I don't know if this is the fact, I'm just saying stuff, but I think maybe women emotionally cheat more than men.
What does that mean?
Emotional cheating is that they actually never do anything physical, but they feel something deep for someone else.
I see. That's just emotions, no?
Yeah, it's still emotional cheating.
But they do something? You're saying they do something with it?
They never physically do anything with it, but they can just live their whole lives still being in, like, let's say they have someone at work. And they're like deeply invested in that person. They love them almost, but they never physically act on it.
Okay. Is that cheating though?
Some people say emotional cheating is cheating, yeah.
I feel like if you're doing something about it, yeah, but like that's just feelings, no?
But should you have those deep feelings if you're in a relationship with
How
somebody
can you
else?
not? Like you can't choose who you love, who you really like. That's not an on-off.
Of course you can choose, because you just don't open that up with someone else. Like if you're in a relationship with me, for example, and someone works here, you just don't open the opportunity to fall in love with that person.
But I don't know if you can stop that.
Because that's an innate emotion it's opened up in you.
And in your minds, that's not cheating.
No. Not unless you act on it.
If she's like hanging out with him all the time, they're like like she's kind of like in a relationship with him, but not officially.
Spending time is a bit further across the line than, that's, Susie, I think she's really pretty in the office.
So then does that mean that maybe it's a man thing, you put the physical above the emotion then?
100%.
Yeah, because physically touching someone or kissing someone, that's an action that you did with your own body. It's not something that was conceived and is going around in your mind.
So this is a ridiculous question. So what would you rather? Your partner come to you and be like, hey, I've been having sex with this person, I'm so sorry. Or they're like, hey babe, I'm in love with this man, nothing's happened, I haven't touched him.
Second one. Every day.
You'd prefer that?
Yeah.
What would you want?
I'd rather you slept with someone than tell me you was in love with someone else. Because I can feel like sex to you is just it was just that physical thing. It was a lack of discipline, rather than I've invested my love in someone else.
I don't know, a lack of discipline though. I saw a really good meme that's become my slogan for the next little while. If you let them shenan once, then they'll shenan again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a different story if you're going to forgive cheating or not. That's a completely different story.
But I'd say to her, I'd be like, okay, do you love him more than, like, if you love him more than me, then go be with that man and we're done. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, cool. That's your emotions.
She doesn't want to leave you. She just, hey, I'm just going to admit this thing to you.
Well, then I want to know, like, okay.
Yeah, you can talk it out from there, though, because it can be unpacked. It can be
compared to a random drunken night.
Yeah, but that's damage then, isn't it? Like,
not okay.
That's not okay.
I'm finished.
Yeah, because that's complete infidelity. Yeah. Right? That's not wandering thoughts.
Right. Okay.
Because I can't tell my partner.
Yeah.
What her emotions should be, how she should feel about other people.
She shouldn't be in love with them. That's what she shouldn't be.
Yeah, but I think that stuff can just evolve over time. Your woman or your partner is going to spend time with people of the other sex.
Yeah.
And they're going to get to know them. And some people they might find attractive, or they might start to develop feelings with. It's less about the feelings, more like what you do about it. If you start to act on it and you flirt with them And
they will. For them to fall in love with them, they've probably spent a lot of time with them. They probably do flirt with them. Okay, they never physically kiss. They never physically sleep together. But there is a lot of like time spent, which then I think will be reflective of what they take away from your relationship. So like, oh, that's why you're home late. Oh, that's why you're cranky. Like because you lose something at home, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by that. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. No. And I do think I see this a lot. Men will say the physical, where a lot of women will be like, if he wasn't in love with someone else, that would break their heart more.
That's really interesting to me. I would have thought everybody would have said, no, the emotional thing's better than the
traditional
physical.
Males are more physical.
Yeah.
You know, traditionally women are more like emotionally connected. So that could make sense.
I think I get why men will say the opposite. Because I think men also, there's a pride linked with their partner sleeping with someone else.
Totally.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, feels like there's something that's theirs that someone else has taken. It's very much, it's a different way they see it.
I guess if you think about like nature, like it's, you know, you see in the nature documentaries, wherever the lion or the polar bear has to fight off the other men who are trying to sleep with her. Like, that's my woman, we mate. Not you guys. There's probably something.
Something that's
because even if you watch all the cliche films and the man admits to cheating, often her first question is, "Do you love her?"
That's so interesting.
Like, because
that's what she really cares about.
That's what she wants to know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this has hurt me, but do you want to be with this person? Because the love feels like something that's exclusive to me, and if you're not giving it to this person.
I think the thing you said there, which made me think, like, the part that's not okay is if they're actively flirting.
Yeah.
And they're like that love for that person has developed because of the flirting, and that's
unacceptable.
Now they're home, they're annoyed because their work husband didn't come in today. You're like, why are you being cranky with me? Yes, because you didn't see her true love today.
Yeah.
So
I think there's also something on the man that if a woman starts to have feelings for another man, is that because you're not giving her what she needs? Could be sexually, but like emotionally, and then so she's just starting to.
I'm so invested in stories about relationships and love. I find it fascinating because I think it's the one thing as humans will never work out, but we sure do try to act like we have. I don't think it's a thing that's work outable. No. And I think because it's not work outable, there are going to be consistent stories about it. It's going to be consistently forever.
Yeah, you could do your podcast forever.
Out.
You never run out of material.
You never run out of it because relationships and love is always going to be so. I see the smartest people be like, "How are you in this situation? You're incredibly smart." But in that realm, it's just different.
I always say to my guy friends, like, relationships are unpredictable.
Yeah.
And if it was all robotic and it's like, I love you, you love me, we're done forever, it's boring. So there's magic in it at the same time.
Oh, I think love is the closest thing we have to magic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely.
So what is your love language?
You said that in such a voice. What is my love language? I think love language, the thing is fascinating.
This is based on the book, The 5 Love Languages,
yes,
right?
Yeah, which has been like debunked. Someone's been like, that's bull, but I refuse.
People debunk everything.
Yeah, exactly. People have made their whole personalities out of love language, so you're not allowed to take that away from anyone. No.
There's also 5 apology languages too.
Interesting. I don't know anything about the apology language.
Yeah. I come across it on Reddit. I saved it as a meme.
What, people say sorry with gifts? Or
there's like 5 different ways you can like apologise to someone. Yeah.
Okay. So we had Paul Branson on the podcast recently, and he's one of my favourite people. I think he's so incredibly interesting.
He's like a relationship
and love expert. Yeah. And he's so incredibly clever. Like, I think he's amazing. And then we every time he speaks to anyone who's invested in love or likes to talk about love, they'll always talk about your love languages. And I'd always been like, when I've done the quiz, acts of service was number 1. Like, acts of service is always, and I massively agree with it.
And like, so what, tell the audience what that means. You want your man to...
acts of service, it will be like just someone helping you out. I've got a big thing with just kind of like having a very useful teammate.
Yeah.
Like, just
do the shopping for you.
Just do the shopping. Or I'd mention something. I was like, oh, here's just to make someone's life easier. And it can be the most mundane thing. Like, I remember listening to a podcast once, because I've got this big thing where I hate putting petrol in my car. I hate putting petrol in your car. It. Like, honestly, it's just a thing that I can't stand doing, like, to get out of the car and put it, and it's really, really good.
Like, for you. I quite enjoy it.
Honestly, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll turn up.
And I remember listening to a podcast, and it was this woman in business. I'm really sorry, I can't remember her name, and she said that, like, her car always has petrol in it because her husband makes sure it's filled every day for her.
That's a nice touch.
And I was like, oh my God, that's my dream. Like, and it's not the most romantic thing ever, but it's just this service that you do for me because you know that I don't like doing it myself. It's just this is specifically for me. Like, it's this, like, yeah, it's serving someone. And I really believe in serving people in all of the ways. Like, even I think I show love in the acts of service way as well. I truly believe that your community, the people around you, should serve you. Like, they should do things to make your life easier. Like, even if it's not someone I know, there's not a world, and I don't know if this is because I'm a Christian, that I could see someone crying and not feel like I should serve them as a human being, to be like, hey, you okay? Or like, just do something about it. Like, I believe in serving people. I just think it makes us better people. So acts of service, massively. Acts of service me till I'm rotten. Like, honestly, like, it's just great. And recently, I denied this for so long because I thought it looked away. I love getting a gift. I think it's brilliant. Buy me all of the gifts in the world. And it doesn't have to be expensive things.
Right.
But just that, I thought about this. I saw this and I thought you'd like it.
How do you feel when you get it?
Honestly, I'm so happy. It just, like, I think it's just like, oh my God, this person thought about me on this, wherever they were in the world. But I'm also that person, I love giving gifts. Like, I'm that person, like, I got you something, do you want to know what it is? Like, I get so excited to be like, open it in front of me. Like, I just really want to see people open their gifts in front of me. And I pride myself on being a good gift giver. Because I don't buy things that I like. I buy things I know you'd like, not just like something random. Like, I'm very specific in like, this person would need this gift.
Do you think it's just like pop psychology type thing, but do you think there's something in the fact that you didn't spend time with your dad and your main communication with him was that he would send you gifts?
Yeah.
Right? That was how you communicated in a
Do you know what?
way.
That is a great point. Because for example, my dad was the first, he sent us Snickers. Till this day, I don't like chocolate. Snickers is the only chocolate that I actually like. I don't eat chocolate, not a fan of it. And Snicker bar, in fact, every time I go buy petrol, buy myself a Snicker bar for a treat. To be like, well done, you did something hard today.
Something hard. Yeah.
And it's the only, so that I think there probably is a massive link to it. Yeah, definitely. Because it was a thing of, it might not have been there, but it's like, here's this thing that this person's thinking about you. And I just didn't admit it for ages because I feel like it's a weird thing for women to admit because it always feels like it's because you want part or because you want, but it's just like, no, I just like really like the idea of like someone buying me a gift. I think as a service, gift, words of affirmation are very low on my list.
Oh, right. You're not bothered with what he says?
Low. Only because I just think words are really fleeting. I think today you could think I'm the most beautiful woman alive and blah, 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 and then tomorrow I am this idiot who's pissed you off. I just think words are incredibly fleeting. So it's not something that I like hold so dearly to, which is interesting being a writer and I like words, but I just don't.
Yeah.
I rarely need flattery. It's nice, but it's not something I need to feel loved. Yeah. I don't feel loved by it. It's nice, but to me, because I can just tell someone who I don't love, oh, you look lovely, and mean it. But I don't love that person. And I don't think they should feel loved by me because I don't. So I don't feel loved by it. It's nice, but I don't feel loved by it.
Are you seeing someone at the moment?
No.
And what are you looking for in a man?
What am I looking for in a man? I think massively a teammate, someone to... I want a big life. That's always been a thing for me. I've always, as a child, fascinated about a big life. And I need someone who can be like, okay, cool, we can do this big life thing together. Massively, it's someone who I can do life with. There's the cliches of, I want them to be good looking, I want them to be funny, I want them to be financially stable, of course, all of that. But I really want us to align on this thing of like, yeah, like we can do a big life together.
Go big.
Yeah.
Buy Snickers.
Jumbo
petrol in my
Snickers.
car, you know, little double-decker ones, petrol in my car, so it's just always done. Like, just, and someone who is, I can encourage, they can encourage, that we do for each other sort of thing. So there is like loads more there, but yeah, ultimately I just want someone I can do life with.
And
big life.
How are you going about it? How are you finding this man?
It will happen.
Do you go on? Are you on a dating apps?
No. Oh God, no. Like, do you know what? Again, I love love and I love romance and all of that. And I still had this like, oh, you'll meet on a train or you'll meet in real life. But like, people meet on dating apps, and I'm not against it. It's just not something that I would do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want a guy to write a little note on the tube?
Little notes, cute, or just some like organic meeting, just something nice, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just take notes, gentlemen.
Yeah, notes on the tube.
Don't stalk her like, I'm on the tube. But if you happen to see her, like that,
a note on the tube.
There you go.
Remember the newspapers where there used to be like little Cupid?
Yeah, meet Cupid. Yeah.
I used to be obsessed with them. I do it all the time. I said, what's anything about me? They never did.
Do guys slide into your DMs?
No, it's or if they do, it's like a backhanded compliment, or it's like not good. Yeah, like
generally, I don't slide into DMs. Probably most of the time, not very good.
Yeah, it's rarely ever good, right? But there's a way to like start a conversation, I guess. But it's yeah. There's like, oh, you look nice. But there's nothing like over, and I get it, right? I think, especially with social media and with someone with a bit of a following, is that people are scared that maybe you screenshot them and you post it.
Oh, that happens.
Do you know what I mean? There's just this world of like the fears they have, and like there's many stereotypes that come in being visible. People assume you're a certain type of person, especially with being confident black woman who's visible. There's many of it that I'm really just not that way inclined. There's not a world where I'm screenshotting a conversation that I had with someone just because I'm 34. Like why would I for what? Why would I do that? But I think there's many things people see on the internet that makes them fearful of doing certain things. Yeah.
Do you talk about your relationships on the podcast?
I never talk about my relationships. Yeah, that's why I did that little smile. I never talk about I for years on the podcast felt like I self-cannibalized. I was always like, this thing is happening to me. I'm going through this. Was saying my experiences. Was saying things that had happened, and I reined it in a lot the last 2 years.
Why?
It didn't feel safe anymore.
What do you mean?
I think it just got bigger than what I thought it would. And it was like people had opinions about my life, people had thoughts about my life, and it was like people noticed it. Like it was very purposeful that I just wasn't that vulnerable on it anymore, because I was just like this. It just didn't feel safe. And I would say of recent, it's become a safe space for me again, and I've started to be more vulnerable again. But also like I talk about a lot. I talk every week. I talked every week for the past 7 years. There are many things that I just want to be mine.
Yeah.
And like I could have been lying. I could be in a 5-year relationship right now.
True.
We'll never know. I love to confuse people. I'll do another podcast. I'll be like, yeah, I've been married for 6 years.
That's a good way to play it. Just like
where you listen, all the information is completely different, and you just figure out what it's true, whatever. Because that's all it is. I just want that thing to be mine.
But why didn't you feel safe? Where was this? How come you didn't feel safe?
It's really interesting. I think I became very aware of how many people are listening to this.
Yeah.
It felt safer to do my personality type that is that, yeah, I'm good, I'm cool, nothing's going to bother me, whatever, than to do my vulnerable personality. I think it got ruined a bit down the line.
Because would people message you with their opinions about what you're deciding to do?
Yeah, because I remember my dad had died in 2020, didn't mention anything on the podcast, probably till like the summer after. And because at first a lot of that was like dealing with it myself, but then once I did that, I'd get loads of messages to be like, they're dealing with the death of their father that they didn't speak to, what should they do? And it was just a lot of trauma like dumping, and I was like, oh, I can't do this, because I was still massively dealing with what I was dealing with. And I get it, and I completely understand it. Like honestly, I truly do, and I appreciate the messages, but it was just like, I need to have worked things out within myself before I put it out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to advise people on this, because I don't know. I'm like going through it as we speak. I don't actually know. I don't know if I'm doing it the best way. I don't know if there is a best way. So I don't know what to say. But I say all of that to say, it has felt of recent a lot safer. It has felt like, yeah, I don't know if it's because of the growth of it, the growth of me, that I'm like, okay, cool. But I think when I reined it in, it was just trying to figure out what it is I wanted to give or not. I find the internet now very interesting and a bit too trauma bonding thing. I think people I don't understand why people need to hear the worst things that have happened to you to like you. I don't understand why they need to hear the worst things that have happened to you to decide that you're soft. Like, they need to hear your trauma to decide that, oh, they are human after all. Why do you need to hear that? And I'd never really believed in performing grief for people. I get why people do it. I understand it. But a lot of that was just me trying to work out what that looked like for me, how much I wanted to share and what I didn't want to share. And yeah, what part of myself I wanted to give to people, basically. And I think I've got to a place I've worked out the good balance of what it is I want to give to people and what it is I don't want to give to people. Because I think sometimes when I'd spoke quite in a way, I'd go back and it'll sit with me and I'm like, oh, I think you said something that you weren't comfortable with. That's why you feel a bit funny. So yeah, I just had to rein it in to work out how much it was that I wanted to give. I find it fascinating now. You go on TikTok and someone will be like, oh, I don't know, they're doing their makeup, get rid of me to do this. And someone's like, story time, how did Janan die? And then I'm just like, this real. Like, it's not all content. This is very real for people. And again, like I said, I don't know why you have to hear about the worst things happen to someone to then deem them a nice person. I've never understood it. Like, why can't people just get to be? Because I'm a big fan of just giving what someone's. And what I was finding was sometimes I'd say something, people want to know more. I'm like, why can't you just take what I've given you?
Yeah.
I've just take what someone's given you. Like, you don't have to find out more about them. We don't need to know, for example, the ins and outs of Beyonce and Jay-Z's relationship. Take what they've given you. And if it's, I'm giving you music, why do you need to know about my past relationships? I've given you a podcast, or why do you need to know who I'm dating right now?
Yeah.
Why do you, like, I just found it weird.
I see.
Yeah. And because we have a very interesting relationship with our listeners. A lot of our listeners will be like, oh my God, I feel like I know you. And you do, to be fair, you do. Like, you've listened to me for 8 years or 7 years, however, you do. And we've done this, like I said, we never missed an episode, through arguments, through fights, through heartbreak, through grief. Like, we've always been there. So yeah, you're right to assume you do know me, but also you don't. So I think it's an interesting balance.
I think maybe what it is that I think everybody's privacy should be respected. If someone said they don't want to talk about something,
just
end it there.
Yeah.
That's totally up to them. What they want to share and don't share is up to them. I think what people enjoy when they hear about someone's difficult moments is it's a very easy way to connect with someone, because nobody is living a life where they haven't had hard times. And when especially if you're out there in the public eye, you come across, like anybody would come across as they've got it all figured out, they've got it all worked out, and some people feel bad about themselves because they don't. And then they hear that something happens, oh, I can relate to them now. Like, oh, they've been through something tough, but they got through it and got through the other side.
But isn't the best thing to assume everyone's been through something tough?
Yeah, people should. I think everyone has.
Maybe not the toughest thing in the world, but everyone's going to have gone through something that's tough to them.
Yeah,
I just don't. People don't think about it when you think about these amazing people. People get, it's almost like they're thinking about all the things amazing about them. And they forget that they're a human.
That
person.
Yeah, I find it interesting. Yeah, and I think I just had to be like, cool, what feels safe for me? What do I want to do?
Yeah, you should decide what you share and what you don't, and nobody should be able to tell you otherwise.
No, that part.
I think we're there.
Yeah, I think we're there.
We're there. Thank you, guys.
Anything coming up you want to share? Anything?
Yeah, what's happening
talk
for the
about?
next year or
What's
so?
happening? We're back to doing live shows. I think by the time our first one happens, this won't be out yet. But we're back to doing live shows, which is exciting. And I'm just concentrating on what else it is that I want to do. I write. And
what do you write for?
I write TV shows. I've got one in development at the moment. Really? That's an idea of mine. So cool. It's just kind of see what that world is. And
can you share what the TV show is or what it's about? Or
not because it's a big secret, because I'm still working it out. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the receipts and what this looks like. I just realized gosh, we only came back in January. We're only in June. It's not, or May, or whatever month we're in, but it's not that far in, and we're still kind of figuring out what this new layout is. And I'm I can say with the receipt space, I'm happy with it now. I'm happy and I'm excited to see what it is that it does. And yeah, 8 years in or 7 years in navigating being visible, that's what I was going to say. I was like, there's a very dark side to being a woman who's visible on the internet. There's loads of underground gossip sites that talk about you. There's all of these things that you have to navigate, and there's not an influencer I know that there was not somewhere on the internet where someone is just bitching about them. And I because of that, I'm like, I don't want to give you stuff, because I just know that this goes into the wrong hands sometimes. Like, you have people who are very adamant to be like, they don't talk about their married life, they don't talk about their personal life. Somehow people find out who their husband is, have posted it somewhere on the internet, and have done really weird things. And I don't know if it happens to a lot of men who are visible, but it happens to a lot of women who are visible. And I think it is where you say that people need to feel better about themselves. That people need to feel like, well, her life is not perfect either. Oh, look, this is, Or they feel this urge to know something about you that you didn't tell them. So like, well, I went to school with her and I know this. Like, I mean, there was a time when I used to talk about my ex and people like said who he was on the internet. And I'd been very careful to never say his name. So there was like things like that. It's like, it just kind of ruins it a little bit.
Someone takes your trust, or like you.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by it's not safe, right? It's this kind of like you can't. I'm not in control of the conversations that I had outside of this. So if I don't give you anything, there's no conversation for you to talk about. So there's always that.
Okay, well, we got to that time where we'll share a poem.
Yay!
About your life.
Poem in some summary and like inspired by what you
Wait, have you
said
been
today.
writing this during this record?
Yeah.
Oh, exciting.
How cool is that? And then just to summarize, I think what people can learn from your life, I think you've got this skill, which I think is so valuable, that this is a lot of people struggle with. It's just that ability that when you've got an idea of something you want to do, the difference between having an idea of something you want to do and actually doing it is vast, given the amount of people who don't actually act on it.
Yeah.
Just that skill to like, okay, I'm going to put that tweet out and I'm going to be the master of my own destiny because I want to do this. I'm going to put it out and do something, is a really great skill.
Yeah.
That people can learn from you, and that if you want to do something, take that action, put your destiny in your own hands, and you just never know where it will take you.
Yeah.
It's taking you to pretty cool places.
Yeah, and my big thing is like, especially for women, like, don't make your things small. You're not doing this little thing. You're not doing this. Just go in it with the of like, oh, it's gonna be a thing. Like, because why wouldn't it? I mean, I'm Nigerian, grew up in a Nigerian household, and consistently, let's say, I don't know, I remember doing a race for life once a year, right? As you guys know, it's a fun, fun charity run. And I come home and I was like, oh, Mum, I did a race for life. She's like, did you win? I was like, no. She was like...
There are like hundreds, thousands of people doing it.
I was like, she's been like, so what's the story? Like, okay, sort of thing. And it's like, okay, the person that won, they had two heads. And that was like the two heads thing. I think if you're in a Nigerian household, it's a thing. And it's kind of to be like, are they any better than you? As in like, they don't have two heads. Which is a belief that is probably to a toxic level, because there's not a thing I'm like, well, if a human being can do it, they have two heads.
Totally.
The likelihood is that I'll be able to do it as well. And it's got me to, because there's a lot of things I can't do. But it's got me to the belief of that, like, well, if it's humanly possible,
Absolutely.
they don't have two heads. They don't have two heads. Like, why not you? What did they do? They trained. They went to go do it. Go do that as well. Yeah, massively.
Brilliant. Love that.
Love it. Okay, here we go. The road to fulfilling passion, one of momentum and moving gingerly. Time heals us through the hardest times. It will always get better eventually. Sitting in the space of Buzzfeed, Tolly learned how to work the internet. 7 years of the Receipts podcast, and she's not even nearly finished yet. Educate yourself and challenge a bias. They cause more damage to be left alone. One question could change the mindset of someone with a vision of a narrower zone. In times of turmoil and strife, taking a break could be the perfect choice. There can be many twists and turns in life, but those often give us more strength to our voice.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I love the line about everything gets better eventually. One of my mottos is, everything is funny eventually.
Eventually, yes.
There you go. That's the story.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'd really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.